The story opens not on earth, but in the gleaming halls of Olympus, where ambrosia flows like wine, and the very air shimmers with divine light. The immortals have gathered to celebrate the wedding of Peleus, greatest of mortal heroes, to silver-footed Thetis, most beautiful of the sea nymphs. Golden tables groan under celestial feasts, and the muses sing of love, triumphant over fate. Yet even in this moment of joy, the seeds of catastrophe take root. Into this divine celebration comes Eris, goddess of discord, her face twisted with spite at her exclusion from the festivities. She has nursed her anger through long ages, and now she will have her revenge upon the proud Olympians. From her robes she draws a golden apple, perfect in its beauty, its surface inscribed with words that will doom generations, for the fairest. The apple arcs through the perfumed air and rolls between three goddesses, each convinced of her own supreme beauty. Hera, queen of heaven, reaches for the prize with regal authority. Has she not ruled beside the king of the immortals? Does not all creation bow before her majesty? But Athena, grey-eyed goddess of wisdom and war, born from Zeus's very skull, contests the claim. She who guides heroes and grants victory surely surpasses mere queenly dignity. Yet Aphrodite, golden goddess of love and beauty, laughs at both their pretensions. Beauty itself stands before them. How can carved stone and cold wisdom compare to the power that brings all creation to its knees? The three goddesses turn to Zeus, expecting his judgment. But the Lord of Olympus has not ruled heaven for eons without learning wisdom. To choose between his wife, his daughter, and the goddess who holds sway over his own heart would bring civil war to the divine realm. With calculated diplomacy, he declares that such beauty can only be judged by mortal eyes, unclouded by celestial politics. On the slopes of Mount Ida, far from Troy's marble halls, the shepherd prince Paris tends his father's flocks in pastoral innocence. He has been raised in ignorance of his royal birth, for prophecy declared that Priam's son would bring destruction to his city. The old king, unable to kill his own child, had ordered the infant exposed on the mountain, but kindly shepherds found and raised him. Now grown to manhood, Paris possesses the beauty of a young deity, with eyes like dark wine and hands gentle enough to soothe the wildest beast. When Hermes descends with his divine charges, the very air around Paris shimmers with otherworldly beauty. The three goddesses stand before him in glory that should blind mortal eyes, yet each veils her full radiance lest the young shepherd be struck dead. They demand his judgment, and each offers bribes that would tempt the wisest king. Hera, in her majesty, promises dominion over all the lands of earth. Choose me, she declares, and you shall rule from the rising to the setting sun. Kings shall bow before your throne, and your empire shall span the world. Her words paint visions of golden cities and armies marching at his command. Athena, her grey eyes gleaming with otherworldly intelligence, offers wisdom beyond mortal ken and victory in every battle. Choose me, she says, and you shall surpass all men in counsel and war. Your strategies shall never fail. Your spear shall never miss its mark, and poets shall sing of your victories until the stars grow cold. But Aphrodite steps forward with a smile that makes Paris's heart race like a trapped bird. Her beauty touches something deeper, the longing that drives all living things, the sweet madness that makes life worth living. Choose me, she whispers, and I will give you the love of the most beautiful woman in all the world. Helen of Sparta surpasses all mortal women, as the sun surpasses the stars. She shall be yours, and in her arms you will know joy beyond imagining. Paris, his judgment clouded by youth and desire, awards the apple to Aphrodite. In that moment, the fate of two great cities is sealed. Hera and Athena withdraw in cold fury, their hatred for Troy now eternal and implacable. They will not forget this slight, and their revenge will be terrible. The journey to Sparta unfolds like a fever dream. Paris, now revealed as a prince of Troy, travels with rich gifts and diplomatic immunity. Menelaus, king of Sparta, receives him with all honor, due a royal guest, for the laws of hospitality are sacred among civilized men. The red-haired king shows off his palace, his treasures, and most proudly of all, his wife, Helen, whose beauty makes even hardened warriors stumble in their words. Helen, daughter of Zeus and Leda, hatched from a swan's egg, is indeed the most beautiful woman ever born. Her beauty carries something divine. When she enters a room, strong men forget their own names, and women weep with envy and despair. She has been married to Menelaus for years, has borne him a daughter, yet her beauty remains undiminished by time or motherhood. When Paris looks upon Helen, Aphrodite's promise burns in his blood like wine. The goddess whispers in his ear, clouds his judgment, and fans the flames of desire until honor and guest friendship become mere words. For her part, Helen finds herself drawn to the young prince with a fascination she cannot explain. Aphrodite works upon them both, weaving spells of love and longing that grow stronger with each stolen glance. Menelaus, trusting his guest and secure in his wife's virtue, departs for Crete to attend his grandfather's funeral, leaving Paris as protector of his household. In the darkness of night, with Aphrodite guiding their steps, Paris and Helen flee Sparta together, taking with them much of Menelaus's treasure and grinding the sacred bonds of hospitality beneath their feet. When Menelaus returns to find his home ransacked and his wife stolen, his rage shakes the very pillars of his palace. The violation cuts deeper than mere adultery. The laws of guest friendship, the foundation of civilized society, have been shattered. His brother Agamemnon, king of Mycenae and most powerful of Achaean rulers, takes up the call for vengeance. The great oath that once bound Helen's suitors now becomes a weapon of war. Years before, when every king and prince in Achaea sought her hand, wise Odysseus had suggested that all swear to defend Helen's chosen husband. Now that oath calls the flower of nobility to arms. Ajax the Great with his tower shield, Diomedes of the mighty war cry, Idomeneus of Crete, and countless others. Even reluctant heroes like Odysseus himself are dragged into the gathering storm. 9 long years have passed since 1,000 black ships carried the Achaean host across the wine-dark sea to beach before Troy's walls. The initial fury of the assault, when heroes dreamed of quick victory and easy glory, has settled into grinding siege warfare. The great walls of Troy, built by immortals in ages past, have proven impregnable to direct assault. Instead, the war has become a series of raids and skirmishes, with the Achaeans controlling the countryside, while the Trojans remain secure behind their fortifications. Heroes who sailed from Achaea as young men have grown grey in the fighting. Many who boasted of their strength now sleep beneath Trojan soil, their bones picked clean by vultures. The war has consumed a generation, creating widows in both Achaea and Troy, leaving children fatherless and parents childless. Yet neither side will yield. Achaean honor demands Helen's return, while Trojan pride forbids surrender. Into this weary stalemate comes a new horror that makes mortal warfare seem gentle by comparison. Plague strikes the Achaean camp with the precision of divine arrows, cutting down soldiers who have survived countless battles. The pestilence shows no respect for rank or courage. Princes die as readily as common soldiers, their bodies burning with fever that no medicine can cure. The very air grows thick with the smoke of funeral pyres. as the army that once boasted of its invincibility cowers before an invisible enemy. For 9 days the plague rages through the camp, each dawn bringing fresh corpses and new terror. Warriors who face Trojan spears without flinching now start at shadows, wondering if they will live to see another sunset. The careful order of military life breaks down as discipline crumbles before divine wrath. Supply lines fail, councils of war dissolve into recriminations, and the great expedition threatens to die ignominiously of disease. On the 10th day, the son of Peleus, greatest of all warriors, can bear no more. His myrmidons, the elite fighters who follow him from Phthia, have suffered grievously from the plague, and his own heart burns with helpless rage. He calls an assembly of the army, his voice cutting through the camp's despair like a bronze blade through silk. If some immortal has sent this pestilence, he declares, then they must discover what offense has brought celestial anger upon them. Calchas, the prophet, steps forward, his face pale with fear and terrible knowledge. Son of Thestor, gifted with the far shooter's own sight, he knows past, present, and future as clearly as other men know their own names. He has foreseen this moment, dreaded it, tried to avoid it, but fate will not be cheated. He knows the truth that will kindle the wrath of kings, but he dare not speak it alone. The old seer's voice quavers as he addresses the son of Peleus. Greatest of warriors, you ask me to reveal the cause of the silver-bowed one's anger, but I fear to speak. Promise me your protection. Swear by all the heavenly powers that you will defend me, for my words will bring the fury of one who rules many Achaeans. His eyes dart toward the king's pavilion, and his meaning is clear to all who watch. The hero, his young face fierce with purpose, swears the oath without hesitation. Speak without fear, old man. While I live and see the light upon this earth, no one shall lay heavy hands upon you beside the hollow ships. No one of all the Achaeans, not even if you name the king himself, who now claims to be greatest among us. The words ring with absolute conviction, and Calchas takes courage from the young champion's promise. The truth, when it comes, falls upon the assembly like a thunderbolt. The far shooter, lord of the silver bow, has loosed these arrows of plague, because King Atreus' son has dishonored Chryses, priest of the archer deity. The old priest had come to the Achaean camp bearing rich ransom for his daughter Chryseis, prize of the king's spear. With tears streaming down his weathered cheeks, Chryses had begged for his child's return, calling upon his patron's name and offering gold enough to buy a city. But the king, secure in his power and drunk on the wine of victory, had spurned the old man with words sharp as bronze. Let me not find you, old fool, lingering near the hollow ships or returning hereafter, lest your master's staff and fillets fail to protect you. The girl I will not free. She shall grow old in Argos, in my own house, far from her native land, working my loom and sharing my bed. Now go, and do not anger me if you would leave alive. The priest had departed, but not in silence. Walking along the shore of the loud resounding sea, he had prayed to his patron with words that burned like fire. Hear me, silver-bowed one, who guards Chryse and holy Scylla, who rules over Tenedos in might. If ever I crowned your temple with garlands, if ever I burned rich thigh bones of bulls and goats upon your altar, grant me this prayer. Let the Achaeans pay for my tears with your arrows. And the archer deity had heard his servant's prayer. Down from Olympus he had come like the night itself, his silver bow upon his shoulder, his quiver full of groaning arrows. First he struck the mules and swift dogs, then turned his deadly shafts upon the men themselves. The funeral fires burned continuously, and the Achaean host began to waste away beneath the immortal's implacable wrath. Now Calchas's revelation hangs in the air, like smoke from the funeral pyres. The solution is clear but bitter. Chryseis must be restored to her father without ransom, and sacred hecatombs must appease the offended deity. Every eye turns to the son of Atreus, waiting for the king's response, knowing that royal pride will war with military necessity. The king's face darkens like a storm cloud as rage fills his heart. The public humiliation cuts deeper than any Trojan spear, for a ruler's honor is his life, and to yield his prize before the assembled army is to confess weakness. Yet he cannot deny the truth of Calchas's words. The plague speaks louder than any argument. Through gritted teeth, he agrees to give up Chryseis, but his next words ignite a greater fire than the far shooter's arrows ever kindled. "I will give up the girl," the king declares, his voice hard as iron. "But I shall not be the only one among the Danaans to go without a prize. That would not be fitting. You all see that my prize is going elsewhere. But come, give me a prize immediately, or I alone of the Argives will be without one. And that is not proper either." His eyes, bright with malice and wounded pride, fall upon the son of Peleus. The greatest warrior sits silent among his captains, but the king sees in him both threat and opportunity. Here is the man whose glory outshines even royal radiance, whose prowess makes other heroes seem like children playing at war. "Perhaps I shall take your prize, son of Peleus," the king continues, his words dropping like stones into still water. "The lovely Briseis. I shall take her and go, and whoever loses his prize will be angry." The confrontation that follows will echo through the ages, sung by poets yet unborn, and whispered around campfires when the world grows old. The hero rises to his feet, his young face terrible in its fury, his voice cutting through the assembly like a sword through silk. The insult burns in his heart like molten bronze. To lose Briseis, his prize of honor, his comfort in this bitter war, is to be diminished before all the world. "You shameless one, clothed in impudence," the hero's words ring across the silent assembly. "How can any of the Achaeans obey you willingly, whether to go on a journey or to fight strongly in battle? I did not come here to fight because of the Trojan spearmen. They have done nothing to me. They have never driven away my cattle or horses, never destroyed my harvest in fertile Phthia, for between us lie many shadowy mountains and the resounding sea. But you, shameless one, we followed to please you, to win honor for Menelaus and yourself from the enemy. You do not regard this. You do not care." The young hero's voice rises as his anger grows, each word a javelin thrust at the king's authority. "Never do I receive a prize equal to yours when the Achaeans sack some well-inhabited city. My hands do the greater part of furious war, but when the distribution comes, your prize is far greater. While I go to my ships with some small thing, dear to me, when I am weary from fighting. Now I shall go to Phthia, since it is much better to return home with my beaked ships than stay here dishonored, piling up wealth and riches for you." The king's response comes swift as an arrow, his own royal fury matching the young warrior's rage. "Flee then, if your heart urges you. I shall not beg you to stay for my sake. Others remain with me, who will honor me, especially the counselor. You are most hateful to me, of the kings nurtured by Zeus, for strife is always dear to you, and wars and battles. If you are very strong, an immortal gave you that strength. Go home with your ships and your companions, and lord it over your myrmidons. I care nothing for you. I pay no heed to your anger. But this I declare. As the far shooter takes away Chryseis from me, I shall take lovely-cheeked Briseis, going myself to your hut, so that you may know well how much greater I am than you." The king's words strike the hero like physical blows, and for a moment it seems he will do murder. His hand flies to the great sword at his side, its bronze blade singing as it clears the sheath by a finger's breadth. The assembly holds its breath, knowing that if the son of Peleus draws that blade, the king will die where he stands, and the Achaean cause will die with him. But in that crucial moment, unseen by all but the hero himself, Athena appears. The grey-eyed goddess, sent by Hera, who loves both heroes despite their quarrel, seizes the young warrior by his golden hair. Her touch is like ice and fire together, divine authority that cannot be denied, and her words ring in his mind alone. "I came from heaven to check your anger, if you will obey. Stay your hand, do not draw the sword. Revile him with words instead. For this I tell you, and it shall be accomplished. Hereafter 3 times as many glorious gifts shall be given to you because of this outrage." The sword slides back into its sheath with a sound like a sigh, but the damage is already done. The hero's words, when they come, carry the weight of prophecy, for his divine mother has granted him glimpses of what is to come. Wine-heavy man, with a dog's face and a deer's heart, you have never dared to arm yourself for battle with your people, nor to go in ambush with the best of the Achaeans. That seems like death to you. But I shall speak to you and swear a great oath. By this scepter, which shall never again bear leaves or branches, since it first left its stump in the mountains. This shall be a great oath for you. Some day a longing for the son of Peleus will come upon the Achaeans, all of them. And on that day you will not be able to help them, for all your grief when many fall dying before man-slaying Hector. Then you will tear your heart within you in anger that you did not honor the best of warriors. With these words, he hurls the golden scepter to the ground and stalks from the assembly, his closest companions following in his wake. The prophecy hangs in the air like the smell of blood, and even the king feels a chill touch his heart despite his royal rage. The taking of Briseis unfolds with the dignity of ritual and the pain of sacrifice. The girl herself, daughter of a priest of Artemis, says nothing as she is led from the hero's hut to the king's pavilion. Her eyes meet those of her captor turned protector one last time, and in that glance lies all the sorrow of women in wartime, passed from hand to hand like treasure, their own desires counting for nothing against the pride of men. As the sun sets over the wine-dark sea and the waves lap against the black hulls of the Myrmidon ships, the son of Peleus walks alone along the water's edge. His rage has cooled to something harder and more dangerous, a resolution that will reshape the war itself. He calls upon his divine mother, and silver-footed Thetis rises from the depths, like sea foam given form, her immortal beauty marked by sorrow, for she has already foreseen what her son will ask. "My child," she says, her voice like the whisper of waves on shingle, "why do you weep? What sorrow has come to your heart? Do not hide it, but tell me, so that we both may know." And he pours out his grief and rage, the whole bitter story of honor lost and pride wounded, ending with a plea that burns like fire. "Mother, since you bore me to be short-lived, high-thundering Zeus should have granted me honor. But now he has given me none at all. The son of Atreus has dishonored me, taking my prize by force." Thetis weeps silver tears that fall like rain upon the darkening sea. She knows her son's fate better than he does himself. 2 destinies lie before him, long life without glory, or a short life crowned with immortal fame. She sees now which path he has chosen, and though her heart breaks, she will not fail him. "My poor child," she whispers. Why did I rear you, cursed as you are in your birth? Would that you could sit by your ships without tears and grief, since your lifetime is brief and not long, but now you are both swift-fated and wretched beyond all men. Yet a mother's love conquers even divine wisdom. Thetis promises to carry her son's petition to the Thunderer himself, to beg Zeus to honor the hero by granting victory to the Trojans until the Achaeans learn the worth of the warrior they have scorned. The price will be paid in Achaean blood, in the lives of heroes who might have lived if pride had not poisoned counsel, but the son of Peleus will have his revenge. On Olympus, Thetis finds Zeus alone upon the highest peak, brooding over the fates of mortals with eyes that see all things. She reminds him of old debts, how she once saved him when the other immortals conspired against his rule. Now she asks payment for that service. Honor my son, who is swiftest to die of all men. King Atreus' son has dishonored him, taking his prize by force. But you, Zeus, who counsels, honor him. Give victory to the enemy, until the Achaeans pay my son fitting honor and increase his glory. The great head nods slowly, though Zeus knows the cost. His promise will set deity against deity, will bring civil war to Olympus itself. For Hera loves the Achaean cause and will not forgive this betrayal. But a promise made to Thetis cannot be broken. Troublesome it is, he rumbles, his voice like distant thunder, when you set me at variance with Hera, and she will revile me with harsh words. But I will take thought of these things to accomplish them. Come, I will nod my head to you, so that you may be confident. My word cannot be recalled, nor is it false, nor unfulfilled, whatever I nod my head to. The great nod that follows shakes Olympus to its foundations, sets the stars dancing in their courses, and seals the fate of heroes yet unborn. That very night, as Thetis returns to her ocean depths, and Zeus ponders the price of promises, the Lord of Heaven sends a false dream to the king in the shape of aged Nestor. The dream whispers of certain victory if the king attacks at dawn, claiming that the immortals are now united in Troy's destruction. The king wakes with fire in his heart, believing the lie is truth, yet driven by some celestial folly that matches the false dream's deception. He chooses first to address the assembled troops, not with promises of victory, but with words of defeat, speaking of abandoning the siege and sailing home with empty hands. The war-weary soldiers need no further invitation. 9 years of siege have worn their spirits thin, and the king's words touch longings they have tried to forget. Like a tide rushing toward shore, the entire army surges toward their ships, leaving their leaders stunned and helpless. Only the intervention of Odysseus, armed with the royal scepter and speaking with Zeus's authority, turns the rout back into an army. Now unfolds the great catalogue of ships, as the poet's voice rises in ancient song to name each contingent that sailed from Achaea 9 years before. From the king's 100 ships carrying the men of Mycenae and Argos, to Menelaus's 60 bearing the warriors of Lacedaemon, to the 50 black ships of the Myrmidons, loyal to absent Peleus' son. The full might of Achaea arrays itself upon the plain. Each name carries weight of history. Each ship represents families torn apart by war. Across the field, Hector marshals Troy's defenders and her far-flung allies, proving that this is truly a war between worlds. Lycians follow godlike Sarpedon, son of Zeus himself, while Dardanians march under Aeneas, born of Aphrodite's love for mortal Anchises. Thracians and Phrygians, Paeonians and Paphlagonians, warriors from the edges of the known world, have travelled far to honour their oaths to Priam. As the armies advance toward each other across the plain of Troy, their bronze armor flashing in the morning sun, like scales on some great serpent. The very earth trembles beneath their tread. Dust rises like smoke from a great fire, and the air fills with war cries in a dozen tongues, the clatter of bronze on bronze, the thunder of horses' hooves. Overhead, the immortals take their places to watch the mortals play out their eternal drama of love and hate, honor and revenge, glory and death. Zeus holds his golden scales, ready to weigh the fates of heroes, while Athena and Aphrodite glare at each other across the divine divide, their ancient grudge about to spill mortal blood across the wine-dark plain. The far shooter tunes his silver bow, Ares sharpens his spear, and Poseidon makes the earth itself ready to drink deep of heroes' blood. The stage is set for tragedy on an epic scale. The son of Peleus broods by his ships like a storm held back by the thinnest dam, his wrath kindled but not yet at full flame. Troy's walls stand proud but doomed, their strength soon to be tested by powers greater than bronze and stone. Helen watches from her tower, beautiful and cursed, the cause of war she never chose to start. Her very presence a reminder that the greatest conflicts often spring from the simplest human desires twisted by divine will. On the plain between the armies, the dust rises like a golden cloud, marking the place where heroes will die and legends will be born. The war that began with a golden apple and a judgment clouded by desire will now be decided by bronze and blood, by the clash of spear on shield and the inexorable will of the deathless ones. 9 years of siege and sorrow have led to this moment, and now the true test begins, not just of Achaean against Trojan, but of mortal pride against divine purpose, of individual will against the turning of fate's great wheel. The armies stand poised like waves before the storm breaks, bronze glinting under the morning sun as dust clouds mark their advance across the plain. But before the inevitable clash, fate intervenes through the voice of Alexandros himself. The prince who began this war steps forward from the allied ranks, his leopard skin cloak flowing behind him, twin spears gleaming in his hands. His beauty remains unmarred by 9 years of siege, yet something has changed in those dark eyes, perhaps the weight of countless deaths laid at his feet. With the bold arrogance that first won him the daughter of Zeus's heart, the shepherd prince challenges the bravest of the Danaans to single combat. His voice carries across the no-man's land between the armies, echoing off Troy's ancient walls. Come, you best of the Argives, and fight me man to man, for the daughter of Zeus and all her treasures. Let the immortals decide between us, and let the winner take all while our peoples swear binding oaths of peace. The challenge strikes the front rank like a thunderbolt. Here at last is the chance to end 9 years of bloodshed with a single duel to restore honor without the slaughter of thousands. But when red-haired Menelaus steps forward, his bronze armor blazing with righteous fury, the shepherd prince feels his courage melt like wax before flame. The cuckolded king's very presence seems to burn. Here stands the wronged husband, the man whose hospitality was violated, whose treasure was stolen, whose honor demands satisfaction written in blood. The beautiful prince stumbles backward into the safety of his ranks like a man who has stepped upon a serpent in mountain pastures. His face goes pale as marble, and the spears fall from nerveless fingers. The sight of his cowardice sends a ripple of shame through the allied lines, while the Argives roar with mocking laughter. Even the daughter of Zeus, watching from Troy's high towers, must feel her heart sink at her lover's failure. But Hector, noblest of Priam's sons, cannot bear to see his brother's disgrace poison the army's courage. His rebuke cuts deeper than any enemy spear. Alexandros, you curse, beautiful to look upon but rotten at heart. Would that you had never been born or had died unwed before you brought this shame upon us all. Better that than to be a coward before the enemy, a thing for men to point at and despise. Do you think the flowing-haired Danaans will say our champion is mighty because you have a fair face, though there is no strength in your heart? When you sailed in your shapely ships and gathered companions from foreign lands and brought back a beautiful woman from a distant country to be the wife of warriors, you became a curse to your father and city and all your people, a joy to our enemies, and a shame to yourself. The words strike the prince like physical blows, yet they kindle something that beauty and love could not. The desperate courage of a man who has nothing left to lose but his last shred of honor. Hector, he replies, his voice steadying as resolve hardens within him. Your rebuke is just, and I do not refuse it. Your heart is like an axe that cuts through wood, never dulled by use. But do not throw the lovely gifts of golden Aphrodite in my face. The glorious gifts the deathless ones give are not to be rejected, though mortals cannot choose them for themselves. Now, if you wish me to enter the lists and do trial by combat, make the other defenders and all the Argives sit down, and set me and war-loving Sparta's king to face each other between the armies for the daughter of Zeus and all her possessions. Whichever of us wins and proves superior, let him take all the wealth and the woman and lead her home. And let the rest of you swear faithful oaths of friendship. The proposal spreads through both armies like wildfire. Here is the solution that wise men have dreamed of. Let the guilty parties settle their account, while sparing the innocent thousands who have bled for their quarrel. Hector strides into the space between the armies, his great spear held crosswise to hold back the eager ranks, while heralds race to bring the kings together. In Troy's highest tower, the daughter of Leda sits among her women, weaving a great purple web on which she depicts the struggles fought for her sake. The sound of approaching footsteps makes her look up to see aged Iris, disguised as her sister-in-law Laodice, bringing word that her husband and lover will face each other at last. Come, dear sister, the disguised goddess whispers, and see the wondrous thing. Those defenders and bronze-armored Danaans, who just now carried sorrowful strife against each other on the plain, now sit in silence. The hostilities stopped, leaning on their shields, their long spears planted in the ground. But Alexandros and the red-haired king, dear to Ares, will duel with long spears for you, and you will be called the dear wife of whoever conquers. The beauty's heart stirs with longing sharp as pain, not for the prince or the Spartan king, but for her former home, her parents, her daughter Hermione left behind in Sparta. The celestial messenger has planted sweet homesickness in her breast, and she wraps herself in silver-white linen, letting fall tears like rain. With 2 handmaidens, she hastens to the Scaean gates, where Troy's elders sit like cicadas in a tree, their voices soft with age. When the old men see the world's most beautiful woman climbing the tower steps, they cannot help but murmur among themselves. Small blame that defenders and well-grieved Danaans should suffer long hardships for such a woman. She is terribly like the deathless ones to look upon. Even so, beautiful as she is, let her go in the ships and not remain here as a curse to us and our children hereafter. But Priam, king of Troy, calls her to his side with gentle words. Come here, dear daughter, and sit beside me, so you may see your former husband and your kinsmen and friends. I do not blame you. I blame the celestial powers who brought this tearful strife upon us. Tell me, who is that huge man among the Danaans, goodly and great? Others are taller by a head, but I have never seen one so beautiful, or so royal. Surely he looks like a king. Thus begins the Tychoscopia, the viewing from the walls, as the daughter of Zeus identifies the heroes for the king. That is the son of Atreus, wide-ruling Agamemnon, she says, her voice heavy with memory. Both a good king and a strong spearman. He was my husband's brother. Shameless that I am, if indeed that was ever true. The old king marvels at the sight of so many ships and men gathered for one woman's sake. And who is that other one? Priam asks. Shorter than the king by a head, but broader in the shoulders and chest. His armour lies on the bountiful earth, but he ranges through the ranks of men like a ram among sheep. The beauty's eyes soften with something like affection. That is Odysseus, son of Laertes, who was raised in the land of Ithaca. He knows all manner of wiles and cunning plans. Wise Antenor, who sits beside the king, remembers when Odysseus came to Troy as an envoy before the conflict. When he rose to speak, he seemed like a man with no skill in words, but when he let his great voice ring out and words like snowflakes in winter, then no mortal could contend with the son of Laertes. Point by point, the daughter of Leda names the heroes. Ajax the Great, towering like a deity among the Argives. Idomeneus of Crete, standing among his captains like an Olympian. But when Priam asks about her own brothers, Castor the horse-tamer and Polydeuces the boxer, she does not know they already lie dead in Lacedaemon, held fast by the life-giving earth. The cruel irony hangs unspoken. She searches for faces that will never again look upon the sun. Meanwhile, the sacred oaths are prepared with ritual solemnity. The son of Atreus and Priam meet in the space between the armies, while priests bring the sacrificial lambs and wine for libation. The king of Troy's hands tremble as he participates in the ceremony, not from fear, but from the terrible weight of what hangs in the balance. His city's fate, his son's life, the conflict's end or continuation, all rest upon the strength of two men's arms and the favour of the heavenly powers. The High King raises the great bronze knife and cuts wool from the lambs' heads, distributing it to the greatest of both armies. Then, with hands lifted to heaven, he speaks the binding words, Father Zeus, who rules from Ida, most glorious and greatest, and you Son, who sees all things and hears all things, and you rivers and earth, and you who punish dead men who have sworn false oaths, be witnesses and guard these faithful oaths. If Alexandros kills Menelaus, let him keep the daughter of Zeus and all her possessions, and we will go away in our seafaring ships. But if fair-haired Menelaus kills the prince, then let the defenders give back the beauty and all her wealth, and pay such compensation to the Argives as is fitting, that it may be remembered even by men yet to be born. The lambs' throats are cut, and their blood darkens the earth as both armies pray for the same outcome, that the hostilities might end this day, that no more young men need die for an old quarrel between princes. But even as the sacred words are spoken, the celestial powers on Olympus are weaving different plans. The single encounter begins with ancient ritual. Hector and Odysseus mark out the ground and shake lots in a bronze helmet to determine who will cast the first spear. The shepherd prince wins the draw, fitting his fortune that has always been better than his courage. The armies sit upon the ground in careful ranks, their shields and long spears planted beside them, while the two champions arm themselves in the space between. Alexandros binds his beautiful legs with greaves fitted with silver ankle clasps, and about his chest he puts the corselet of his brother Lycaon, fitted to his own body. Around his shoulders he slings his silver-studded sword, then takes up his massive shield and sets upon his mighty head a well-made helmet with horsehair crest that nods menacingly above. finally he grasps his strong spear fitted to his hand. The red-haired king arms himself with equal care, his bronze gleaming like fire in the morning sun. His rage has had 9 years to ripen into something cold and implacable. This is not the hot anger of a cuckolded husband, but the settled purpose of a king who has seen thousands die for his honor. When both champions stand ready, they stride into the measured space between the armies, their eyes terrible to behold, while all the seated warriors marvel at the sight. The prince, having won the lot, hurls his long-shadowed spear first. The bronze point strikes the Spartan's shield fairly, but the metal does not break through. Instead, the spear point bends back like lead, turned by the shield's divine craftsmanship. Now the red-haired king lifts his weapon, praying to Father Zeus, "Lord Zeus, grant me revenge on him who first did me wrong, divine Alexandros. Subdue him under my hands, so that many a man hereafter may shrink from wronging a host who shows him kindness." The spear flies straight and true, piercing through the prince's glittering shield and on through his intricate corselet. By the breadth of a hair, it misses his side as he twists away, but the bronze tears his tunic and draws blood. The Spartan king draws his silver-studded sword and springs forward with a great war cry, but the blade shatters against the Trojan's helmet crest, falling in pieces from his hands. In desperation, the red-haired warrior seizes Alexandros by his horsehair crest and begins to drag him toward the Argive lines. The richly embroidered chin strap cuts into the prince's tender throat, choking off his breath, and victory seems certain. The sight sends wild cheering through the Argive ranks. At last, justice will be done. The war will end. The daughter of Zeus will be restored. But Aphrodite, who has watched her favorite's defeat with growing alarm, will not let her champion perish so ignominiously. Invisible to mortal eyes, she breaks the chin strap and snatches the shepherd prince away in a cloud of mist, bearing him safely to his perfumed chamber in Troy's palace. The golden goddess, terrible in her beauty and pitiless in her love, then goes to fetch the world's most beautiful woman from the tower. Disguised as an old wool woman who had served the beauty in Sparta, Aphrodite appears beside the watching queen. "Come," she says, her voice honey-sweet with command. "Alexandros calls for you." He waits in his chamber, radiant in beauty and dress. You would not think he had just come from fighting, but rather that he was going to a dance, or had just stopped dancing and was resting. The daughter of Zeus recognizes the goddess despite her disguise. The beautiful neck, the lovely breasts, the sparkling eyes give her away. Terror and anger war in the queen's heart as she responds, "Strange divinity, why do you wish to beguile me? Will you carry me yet further away to some well-inhabited city of Phrygia or lovely Maeonia, if there too you have some mortal man dear to your heart? Is it because the red-haired king has now conquered godlike Alexandros and wishes to take me, hateful as I am, back home with him, that you now stand here with treacherous intent? Go sit beside the prince yourself. Renounce the ways of the immortals. Never let your feet carry you back to Olympus, but always be troubled about him and guard him until he makes you his wife, or perhaps his slave. I will not go there, it would be shameful, to share his bed." But the goddess's wrath is terrible to behold. Her beautiful eyes flash with divine fire as she threatens, "Do not provoke me, reckless woman, lest in my anger I abandon you and hate you as much as I now love you terribly, and lest I devise hateful enmities between both sides, defenders and Danaans alike, and you come to an evil end." The world's most beautiful woman, seized with fear before the immortal's rage, goes silently to her lover's chamber, her serving women following behind. There she finds the prince, more beautiful than ever in his defeat, lounging on his carved bed as if nothing had happened. Her words to him burn with contempt and shame. You have come back from the fight. Would that you had died there, conquered by that strong man who was my former husband. Once you used to boast that you were better than war-loving Sparta's king in spearwork and the strength of your hands. Go now and challenge him again to fight. But I advise you to stop and not face fair-haired Menelaus in single combat recklessly, lest you soon fall beneath his spear. The shepherd prince, unashamed in his cowardice, reaches for her with words as smooth as honey. Wife, do not scold my heart with harsh rebukes. This time the red-haired warrior conquered with Athena's help, but another time I shall conquer him. We too have gods on our side. Come now, let us take our pleasure in love's embrace, for never before has desire so encompassed my heart, not even when I first carried you away from lovely Lacedaemon, and we lay together on the island of Crani. Even more than then do I love you now, and sweet desire takes hold of me. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the Spartan king ranges like a wild beast through both armies, seeking the man who has vanished like morning mist. The Argives search high and low, but the prince has disappeared, as if he never existed. Even the defenders, who love him not for his courage, but for Priam's sake, would gladly hand him over if they could find him. He is hateful to them all, like Black Death. Agamemnon, seeing that the duel's outcome is clear despite the divine intervention, addresses both armies with kingly authority. Hear me, you Trojans and Dardanians and allies. Victory clearly belongs to war-loving Menelaus. Therefore give back Argive Helen and her possessions with her, and pay such compensation as is fitting, that it may be remembered even among men yet to be born. The words hang in the air, like smoke from sacrifice, and for a moment it seems the war might truly end. Both armies wait in tense silence, watching their leaders, hoping against hope that 9 years of bloodshed might conclude with honor, satisfied, and oaths fulfilled. But the immortals have different plans, and on Olympus, Zeus speaks words that will shatter the fragile peace like bronze striking stone. Hera and Athena are Menelaus's helpers, the cloud-gatherer observes to the assembled deities, yet they sit apart and take pleasure in watching, while laughter-loving Aphrodite always stands by Paris and wards off his doom, and now has saved him when he thought to perish. But since the victory belongs to war-loving Menelaus, let us consider how these things shall be, whether we should again stir up evil war and the dread din of battle, or put friendship between both sides. If this would be welcome and pleasing to all, then the city of King Priam might remain inhabited, and Menelaus would take Argive Helen back to his home. The suggestion sends Athena and Hera into cold fury. They who have hated Troy since Paris's judgment now see their revenge slipping away. Athena, grey eyes flashing with divine wrath, volunteers for a mission that will damn thousands. Father, do not make my labour vain and fruitless. The sweat I sweated when my horses grew weary from gathering the host against Priam and his sons. Do as you will, but we other immortals do not all approve. Zeus, bound by his promise to Thetis, but seeking to appease his wife and daughter, grants Athena leave to break the truce. Go quickly to the army of Trojans and Achaeans, and try to make the Trojans first break their oaths and do harm to the glorious Achaeans. The command is all the war goddess needs, like a star that Zeus hurls from heaven as a portent to sailors, or a wide army of men, bright and showering sparks around it. So Athena speeds down and plunges into the midst of the troops. Wonder seizes both armies as they watch the divine fire streak across the sky, and men murmur among themselves, Either there will be evil war again and the dread din of battle, or Zeus is putting friendship between both sides, he who is the dispenser of war among mortals. Athena, disguised as Laodocus, son of Antenor, seeks through the Trojan ranks until she finds Pandarus, son of Lycaon, a skilled archer whose bow was crafted from the horns of a wild ibex he himself had slain. The goddess appears beside him with honeyed words of treachery. Would you now listen to me, wise son of Lycaon? Then you would dare to shoot a swift arrow at Menelaus. You would win favor and glory from all the Trojans, and especially from Prince Paris. From him above all, you would receive glorious gifts if he should see war-loving Menelaus struck down by your arrow and laid on the sorrowful funeral pyre. Come then, shoot an arrow at glorious Menelaus, but vow to Apollo, the wolf-born lord of archery, that you will sacrifice a glorious hecatomb of firstling lambs when you return home to the city of sacred Zelea. The fool Pandarus listens to Athena's counsel, dooming himself and his people. He uncovers his polished bow and strings it, then selects his finest arrow, black with pain and suffering yet to come. In secret, hidden by his companions' shields, he draws the bovine string to his breast and the iron arrowhead to the bow. When the great curved bow is drawn full circle, the bow sings and the arrow flies, keen to reach its mark. But you, Menelaus, were not forgotten by the blessed immortals. Athena herself, who had prompted the treachery, now stands before you to ward off the bitter arrow. As a mother brushes a fly from her sleeping child, so the goddess turns the shaft aside. She guides it to where the golden buckles of his belt come together, and the doubled corselet offers protection. The arrow strikes the fitted belt and passes through the intricate corselet and the guard he wore beneath to protect his flesh. This served him best as a barrier against the bronze. Even so, the arrow grazes his skin and dark blood flows from the wound. As when a woman stains ivory with purple dye, some Maionian or Carian woman, to make a cheek-piece for horses, and it lies in a chamber while many horsemen long to bear it away. But it is laid up as a prize for a king, both an ornament for his horse and a glory for the charioteer. Even so, Menelaus, were your shapely thighs stained with blood, and your legs beneath, and your beautiful ankles. The sight of blood flowing from their king strikes terror into the Achaean ranks, while wild joy surges through the Trojans. But when Menelaus sees that the wound is shallow, the bronze point having barely broken skin, his courage returns like wind filling a sail. Still, Agamemnon groans when he sees the dark blood, and war-loving Menelaus himself groans too. The king's lament echoes across the plain as he clasps his brother's hand. Dear brother, it was your death I swore in making this covenant, setting you alone before the Achaeans to fight the Trojans. So the Trojans have struck you down and trampled on the faithful oaths. Yet the oath and the blood of lambs and the unmixed wine and the right hands in which we trusted shall not be vain. If the Olympian does not fulfill them now, he will fulfill them later, and they shall pay a great price, with their own heads and their wives and children. For I know this well in my heart and soul. The day will come when sacred Troy shall perish, and Priam and the people of Priam, of the good ashen spear. The words ring with prophetic force, and across the field, Trojans and allies feel a chill touch their hearts despite their momentary triumph. The oaths have been broken, the blood spilled, and now the war that might have ended must rage on until one side or the other lies in ruins beneath the unforgiving sky. The arrow's treachery shatters the morning peace like bronze striking stone. Where moments before sacred oaths hung in the air and hope flickered, that 9 years of bloodshed might end. Now the wine-dark stain spreads across the red-haired king's thigh, and with it spreads the certainty that this conflict will not end with handshakes and honoured treaties. The sight of royal blood flowing upon the earth sends a roar of fury through the Argive ranks, while across the field, the defenders realize with growing dread that their archer's shot has doomed them all. The High King's voice rises above the tumult, like thunder over the plain, his words carrying the weight of prophecy and the promise of vengeance. The oaths are broken. The blood of innocents cries out for justice. Zeus the Oathkeeper will not let this treachery go unpunished. Though Troy's walls may delay our victory, they cannot prevent it. The day will come when sacred Ilium shall perish, and Priam and his people shall pay the price for this faithlessness. The resumption of hostilities unfolds with the terrible inevitability of a landslide. Warriors who moments before sat peacefully upon the earth now surge to their feet, bronze singing as spears are lifted and shields are hefted. The careful formations dissolve and reform as captains bellow orders and the great war machine grinds back into motion. Yet among all the heroes arming for slaughter, one figure stands apart, the son of Tydeus, his eyes blazing with a fury that seems almost superhuman. The young lord of Argos has been chosen by fate and the grey-eyed goddess to become this day's instrument of divine wrath. As the armies clash in the space between Troy's walls and the Argive ships, the Argive champion cuts through the enemy ranks like a forest fire through dry timber. His spear finds its mark with every thrust. His sword sings its bronze song of death. And before him, the defenders fall back in terror and amazement. First to die beneath his onslaught is Phegeus, son of Dares, priest of Hephaestus. The young warrior drives his chariot straight at Tydeus' son, confident in his divine protection. But the Argive spear punches through his chest as if bronze were merely cloth. The horses rear and bolt, carrying away the corpse, while Phegeus' brother Idaeus leaps to safety, abandoning chariot and armor to preserve his life. The slaughter continues as divine fire burns in the hero's veins. Astylus falls to his spear, then Hipperon and Abas and Peliadus, names that will be remembered only for the manner of their dying. The young champion's Aristeia, his moment of supreme glory, transforms him into something more than mortal, less than celestial, a figure of terror that drives panic through the enemy ranks like wind through wheat. But the defenders are not without their own champions. Aeneas, son of Aphrodite and noble Anchises, sees the carnage spreading and knows that only divine blood can stand against this rampage. Born of the union between goddess and mortal prince, heir to the ancient bloodline of Dardanus, Aeneas embodies Troy's last hope for survival. He seeks out Pandarus, the fool whose arrow shattered the peace, and together they drive their chariot toward the raging lord of Argos. The confrontation comes with the crash of bronze on bronze. Pandarus hurls his spear first, the point striking the Argive's shield and piercing through to wound his shoulder. The archer crows in triumph. Drive on, you great-hearted defenders. The best of the enemy is wounded, and I think he will not long endure my bitter arrow, if indeed it was truly the Lord Apollo who sent me forth from Lycia. But the wound only kindles the son of Tydeus' fury to greater heights. He prays to his divine patron, and she answers by filling his limbs with strength and clearing the mist from his eyes, so he can distinguish between mortal and immortal on the field of strife. The goddess whispers in his ear, "Fight without fear against the deathless ones themselves, except only Zeus the Thunderer. Strike down any who oppose you, even if they claim Olympus as their home." Now begins the most audacious sequence in all the tales of the conflict. a mortal warrior's assault upon the very powers of heaven. When Aeneas charges forward, trusting in his divine heritage to protect him, the Argive champion meets him with a boulder that would take 2 men of later generations to lift. The stone crushes the hero's hip, sending him crashing to earth, and only Aphrodite's swift intervention saves her son from death. The goddess of love, her delicate hands trembling with fear, lifts her wounded child in her arms and begins to bear him from the carnage. But the son of Tydeus, mad with battle fury and emboldened by his patron's promise, pursues even the immortal daughter of Zeus. His spear point tears through her divine flesh near the wrist, and golden ichor flows, the blood of the celestial ones that never knew mortality or pain. Aphrodite's shriek of agony echoes across both earth and heaven. She drops Aeneas and flees toward Olympus, her wounded hand clutched to her breast, while her son lies helpless on the bloody ground. But Apollo, lord of the silver bow, will not let his fellow deity's child perish. He wraps Aeneas in a dark cloud and spirits him away to his sacred temple on Troy's citadel, where his mother Leto and sister Artemis tend the hero's wounds. Meanwhile, the wounded goddess seeks comfort from her parents on high Olympus. She flies weeping to Zeus, showing him her wounded hand and crying out her grievances. "Father, Diomedes in his fury has wounded me. He would fight with Zeus himself if someone urged him on. First he struck godlike Aeneas, my dear son, and when I sought to save the child from death, he turned his ruthless bronze against me. If I were not immortal, I would lie among the heaps of corpses like any mortal struck down in their pride." But Zeus, the cloud-gatherer, shows little sympathy for his daughter's plight. His words carry the weight of cosmic law and the stern wisdom of ages. "Do not come crying to me, my child, about your sufferings in strife. These matters of violence and warfare are not your portion. Yours are the lovely works of marriage and desire. Leave the business of combat to swift Ares and Athena, who know its bitter ways." On the battlefield below, the Argive continues his rampage, though Apollo himself now stands guard over the place where Aeneas fell. 3 times Tydeus' son rushes forward to claim the wounded hero's armor. 3 times the far shooter beats him back with his silver shield. But when the mortal warrior attempts a 4th assault, the immortal's voice thunders across the plain. "Think, son of Tydeus, and give way. Do not seek to match your will against the deathless ones, for the race of celestial beings and earth-walking mortals is not the same." Even the champion, for all his divine backing, recognizes the wisdom in those words. He withdraws a spear's cast, allowing Apollo to work his healing magic on Aeneas. But the immortal creates a phantom image of the hero to occupy the army's attention, while he spirits the real Aeneas away to safety. Around this false vision, the greatest champions of both sides continue their deadly dance. Now the bronze-armored lord of carnage himself enters the fray at Apollo's urging. The war deity takes the form of Acamas, leader of the Thracians, and his voice rings out to rally the defenders. "Sons of Priam, how long will you let your people be slaughtered by the Argives? Will you wait until they reach our very gates? Aeneas lies wounded, he whom we honored like godlike Hector. Come, let us save our noble comrade from the turmoil." The immortal's words kindle fresh courage in hearts grown weary with long warfare. Sarpedon, the divine son of Zeus, who leads the Lycian contingent, seeks out Hector and reproaches him with stinging words. "Hector, where has your courage gone? You once said you could hold this city with only your kinsmen and brothers-in-law, without allies or help from abroad. But now I cannot see any of them. They cower like dogs around a lion. We who are your allies must do the heavy fighting, and I have come from far Lycia, from the banks of eddying Xanthus, where I left my dear wife and infant son, and many possessions that the needy covet. Yet still I urge on my Lycians, and am eager to face any warrior in single combat, though I have nothing here that the Argives might capture or carry off. But you just stand there and do not even urge your people to make a stand and defend their wives and children. The rebuke stings Hector like a whip across the face, for he knows the truth in Sarpedon's words. The greatest of Priam's sons has been fighting more like a careful general than the inspired champion his people need. But now shame and honor war in his breast, and honor wins the day. He leaps down from his chariot, brandishing his sharp spears, and ranges through the host on foot, urging his men forward into the clash of bronze. As the tide of conflict surges back and forth across the plain, Zeus weighs the fates of heroes in his golden scales. The balance tips now toward the Argives, now toward the defenders, as mortal courage and divine favor ebb and flow like wine in a mixing bowl. Heroes fall on both sides. Cleptolemus, son of mighty Heracles, meets Sarpedon in single combat and dies with the Lycian spear through his thigh, though not before his own bronze finds its mark in the Zeus-born warrior's shoulder. The carnage might have continued until sunset painted the sky red as blood, but the grey-eyed goddess has other plans. She sees that Ares himself fights among the defenders, lending his terrible strength to their cause, and she knows that mortal courage alone cannot stand against such divine opposition. Swift as thought, she speeds to the place where Diomedes fights, still dripping with divine ichor from his assault on Aphrodite. Son of Tydeus, Athena speaks, her voice honey-sweet with deadly purpose. Why do you hold back from facing Ares himself? I myself will guide your spear and drive your chariot. Do not fear the raging war god, that changeable madman, that thing of evil who promised both Hera and me that he would fight against the defenders and aid the Argives, but now has turned to help the enemy instead. With these words, she seizes the reins of his chariot and drives straight toward the bronze-armored deity. Ares, seeing them approach, abandons his current victim and hurls his bronze spear at Diomedes. But Athena turns the weapon aside with her hand, and now the son of Tydeus drives forward with his own spear. The goddess guides the point to where the war god's belt is fastened, and the bronze tears through divine flesh and sinew. The immortal's bellow of pain shakes earth and heaven alike, loud as 9,000 or 10,000 men crying out in the turmoil of strife. Both armies fall flat upon the ground in terror at the sound, and the wounded deity flees to Olympus faster than storm winds, his divine essence streaming behind him like a dark cloud. There he complains bitterly to Zeus about his fellow immortal's favoritism, but receives only cold comfort from his father, who has little love for his son's delight in warfare and tumult. With both Aphrodite and the war power withdrawn from the field, the balance shifts decisively toward the Argive cause. The son of Tydeus and his companions press their advantage, driving the defenders back toward Troy's walls with terrible slaughter. The gates of the city echo with the cries of women and children as word spreads that the enemy draws near, that the walls themselves might not hold against this divinely inspired assault. But as the shadows lengthen and the sun begins its descent toward the western peaks, even the Argive champion feels the weight of mortality upon his shoulders. The divine fire that his patron kindled in his veins slowly fades, leaving him still mighty but no longer the superhuman terror he had been. He withdraws from the front ranks, allowing other heroes to take up the burden of leadership, knowing that this day's glory will be sung by poets for generations yet unborn. The first day of renewed warfare ends with neither side able to claim decisive victory. The Argives have pushed closer to Troy's walls than ever before, but the city still stands unconquered. The defenders have seen their champions bloodied and their divine protectors driven from the field, yet they still draw breath and can still hope for tomorrow's redemption. As darkness falls and the funeral pyres begin to burn for the day's casualties, both sides count the cost of broken oaths and shattered truces. Hector stands upon Troy's walls, gazing out at the Argive campfires that dot the plain like fallen stars, and knows that greater trials lie ahead. Somewhere beyond those flickering lights, Achilles still broods beside his ships, his wrath unabated and his spear still unused. The greatest reckoning is yet to come, and when it arrives, neither mortal strength nor divine favour may be enough to turn aside the doom that hangs over Troy like storm clouds heavy with rain. The wind carries the smoke of the funeral pyres across the darkening plain, mixing the ashes of Argive and defender alike until none can tell friend from foe in death's democracy. Tomorrow will bring fresh violence, new heroes to the fore, and perhaps the beginning of the end for one side or the other. But tonight, in the brief respite between one day's slaughter and the next, even warriors must rest. Even heroes must close their eyes and dream of homes they may never see again. The sun sets like a bronze shield, lowered behind the western mountains, painting the plain of Troy in shades of blood and gold. As darkness spreads across the battlefield like a shroud, both armies count the day's grievous toll. The Argive campfires flicker like fallen stars along the shore, while Troy's walls loom black against the star-scattered sky, their defenders nursing wounds and shattered hopes. In the Argive council tent, the greatest kings of Hellas gather around guttering torches, their faces grave with the weight of mounting losses. The son of Atreus stands before them, his royal authority dimmed by the day's reverses. Where once he spoke with the confidence of certain victory, now his words carry the bitter taste of desperation. Friends, leaders, and rulers of the Argives, the High King begins, his voice heavy with unspoken fears. Zeus, the son of Kronos, has bound me fast in grievous blindness. Cruel god, who once promised me with a nod that I should sack well-walled Troy before returning home. Now he has devised evil deception and bids me return to Argos inglorious after losing many of my people. Such, I suppose, is the pleasure of Almighty Zeus, who has destroyed the citadels of many cities and will destroy others still, for his power is greatest of all. The words strike the assembled heroes like hammer blows, to hear their supreme commander speak of retreat, of abandoning 9 years of sacrifice and bloodshed, fills their hearts with dismay. Yet none can deny the truth behind his fears. The defenders grow stronger with each passing day, while their own forces dwindle like grain before the harvest. But Diomedes, still flushed with the glory of his divine encounters, rises to speak words that kindle fresh hope in hearts grown cold with doubt. Son of Atreus, I will be first to oppose your folly, as is my right in the assembly, Lord, so do not be angry. You yourself dishonored my courage among the Danaans, calling me unwarlike and weak. Whether these things are so or not, all the Argives know. The son of devious counselling Kronos gave you only half a gift. He granted you the honour of the sceptre above all men, but he did not give you courage, which is the greatest power. Strange man, do you really think the sons of the Achaeans are unwarlike and weak, as you say? If your own heart is eager to go home, then go. The way lies open, and your ships that came with you from Mycenae in such great numbers stand by the sea. But the rest of the long-haired Achaeans will remain here until we sack Troy. And if they too flee in their ships to their dear native land, then we too, Sthenelus and I, will fight on until we reach Troy's goal, for we came here with heaven's blessing. The young hero's defiance sparks courage throughout the assembly, like fire catching in dry timber. One by one, the greatest champions of the Argive host rise to pledge their continued service to the cause. Ajax the Great speaks of honor that cannot be abandoned, while Odysseus weaves words of wisdom about the folly of retreat when victory may lie just beyond the next dawn. Even aged Nestor, whose counsel has guided 2 generations of warriors, lends his voice to the chorus calling for renewed effort. As the council breaks apart and the heroes disperse to their ships, the night brings no rest to either army. In the shadows between the camps, darker plans take shape. Fear has made the Argives desperate, and desperate men turn to desperate measures. The need for intelligence burns like fever in their commanders' minds. They must know Troy's plans, discover her weaknesses, find some advantage that might tip the balance in their favor. Agamemnon calls together his most trusted captains in the deep watches of the night. The tent flickers with oil lamplight as he unfolds his scheme. We need eyes and ears within the enemy camp. Someone must penetrate their lines, discover their intentions, perhaps strike a blow that will shake their confidence. His gaze falls upon 2 figures who have never failed him in matters requiring both courage and cunning. The son of Tydeus steps forward first, his young face grim with purpose. Beside him stands Odysseus, the fox of Ithaca, whose mind works like a spider spinning webs of stratagem. Together they represent the perfect combination, divine blessed strength and mortal cleverness, the sword and the subtle word that together might accomplish what armies alone cannot. "We will go," the Argive champion declares, his voice steady as bronze. "But we go not merely as spies, but as agents of Troy's doom. If fortune favors us, we may return with more than mere intelligence." His companion nods, already weaving plans within plans, seeing possibilities that lesser minds cannot grasp. They arm themselves in darkness, choosing stealth over splendor. Gone are the gleaming bronze corselets and tall-crested helmets that mark them as nobles of the battlefield. Instead, they don dark cloaks and soft-soled boots, carry daggers rather than spears, become shadows rather than heroes. The transformation is complete when Odysseus places upon his head a leather cap reinforced with boar's tusks, a gift from his grandfather Autolycus, master of thieves and tricksters. The night swallows them as they slip from the Argive camp like wolves on the hunt. Behind them, their comrades settle into uneasy sleep, dreams troubled by visions of defeat and dishonor. Ahead lies the enemy camp, where Troy's allies keep their own watch against exactly such incursions. But the defenders, too, have felt the sting of desperation. In a tent pitched among the Thracian allies, young Dolon, son of Eumedes, makes his own bargain with fate. The youth is no warrior, slender and swift of foot rather than broad of shoulder, more fitted for running messages than fighting battles. Yet ambition burns bright in his heart, and he has heard King Hector's promise. Whoever penetrates the Argive camp and returns with intelligence of their plans shall receive the immortal horses of Achilles as his reward. The offer is beyond dreams for one of humble birth. Those divine steeds, gifts from the gods themselves, represent more than mere transportation. They are symbols of heroic glory, prizes that would elevate their owner to the ranks of legend. Dolon sees himself driving those magnificent animals through Troy's streets while crowds cheer his name, sees poets composing songs of his exploit, sees a future bright with unimaginable honor. He wraps himself in a wolf's pelt, its grey fur making him nearly invisible in the darkness, and sets out alone into the night. His mission mirrors that of his enemies: to spy, to gather intelligence, to return with secrets that might tip the balance of war. But where the Argive heroes move with the confidence of born killers, the young Thracian advances with the nervous energy of one who knows he is far from his element. The two missions converge in the darkness between the camps, like rivers flowing toward the same sea. Odysseus spots the lone figure first, his experienced eye catching movement where none should be. He signals his companion, and together they melt into the shadows, predators scenting prey. The pursuit is brief and deadly. Dolon, for all his speed, cannot outrun men driven by divine purpose and mortal desperation. They corner him in a dry riverbed, the son of Tydeus' spear point at his throat, while the son of Laertes prepares to extract every secret the trembling youth possesses. "Do not kill me," the young spy pleads, his voice cracking with terror. "My father is rich. He will pay you bronze and gold and wrought iron, treasure beyond counting if you spare my life." But his captors' faces remain hard as stone. They have not come for ransom, but for information, and they mean to have it all. Under their relentless questioning, the youth spills every secret he knows. He tells them of Hector's plans for the morning assault, reveals the positions of Troy's allied contingents, describes the layout of the enemy camp in detail that would make a spy master weep with joy. But most valuable of all, he speaks of the Thracian reinforcements that arrived after sunset. King Rhesus and his men camped apart from the main force, guarded by weariness and false confidence. "Rhesus came today from Thrace," he babbles, terror loosening his tongue beyond all caution. "His horses are the finest I have ever seen, whiter than snow, swift as the wind. His chariot is wrought with gold and silver, and his armor is a wonder to behold, golden and gleaming, too magnificent for mortal men to wear. And there is prophecy about him. If his horses drink from the river Xanthus and graze on Troy's plain, the city will never fall to Argive spears. The intelligence strikes his captors like lightning from Zeus himself. Here is opportunity beyond their wildest hopes. Not merely information, but the chance to strike a blow that might save the entire expedition. If the prophecy speaks truth, then preventing those horses from drinking Trojan water becomes more important than any conventional victory. They waste no time in debate. The son of Tydeus draws his sword with businesslike efficiency, and young Dolon's head rolls in the dust, his dreams of glory ending in blood and betrayal. There is no malice in the killing, no particular cruelty, merely the cold necessity of war, which transforms gentle men into predators and makes murder a tool of statecraft. With their source of intelligence silenced forever, the two Argive heroes turn toward the Thracian camp. They move like shadows given form, death walking softly through the night toward unsuspecting prey. Behind them, Dolon's blood darkens the earth, while his spirit flees to the house of Hades, his wolf-pelt cloak now truly prophetic. The Thracian camp sleeps in blissful ignorance of approaching doom. King Rhesus lies in the center of his men, his magnificent horses tethered nearby, their white coats ghostly in the starlight. The exhaustion of a long journey has made his warriors careless. Sentries doze at their posts, weapons lie unstacked and ready, and the general mood speaks of men who believe themselves far from danger. The attack, when it comes, is swift and silent as plague. The son of Tydeus moves through the sleeping camp like death's own shadow, his sword drinking blood with each stroke. 12 men die without ever waking. their throats opened before dreams can give way to nightmare. Beside him, Odysseus works with equal efficiency but different tools. His dagger finds hearts with surgical precision, while his hands muffle any sound that might wake the sleeping. Rhesus himself dies as he lived, surrounded by magnificence but ultimately helpless before fate's decree. The king's golden armor proves no protection against bronze driven by divine will and mortal desperation. His last sight is of strange faces looming over him in the darkness, foreign warriors whose very presence means his prophecies will never be fulfilled. But the horses are the real prize. These magnificent beasts, white as fresh snow and swift as storm winds, represent more than mere transportation. They are the key to Troy's survival, the living embodiment of divine favor that must not be allowed to taste Trojan water. Odysseus leads them away with gentle words and expert handling, while his companion gathers the dead king's armor as proof of their success. The retreat through enemy lines proves as perilous as the advance. Troy's camp stirs with the first hints of discovery. A sentry calls out a challenge. Voices rise in alarm. The hunt begins, even as the hunters melt away into darkness. But fortune favors the bold, and the two heroes reach Argive lines, just as dawn touches the eastern horizon with fingers of rose and gold. Their return transforms the entire mood of the expedition. Where despair had taken root, hope now flowers, like spring grass after rain. The captured horses become symbols of renewed possibility, while Rhesus's golden armor serves as proof that even Troy's mightiest allies can be humbled by Argive courage and cunning. But victory in the shadows does not translate to triumph in the light. As the sun climbs higher and the armies form their battle lines once more, the fundamental mathematics of siege warfare remain unchanged. Troy's walls still stand unconquered, her defenders still draw breath, and the greatest champion of all, the son of Peleus, still broods beside his ships, his terrible strength unused in the common cause. The day's fighting unfolds with grim predictability. Heroes clash in single combat while armies surge back and forth across the blood-soaked plain. Wounds are given and received, brave men fall to feed the hungry earth, and poets gather material for songs that will outlive the singers themselves. Yet for all the sound and fury, neither side can claim decisive advantage. As evening approaches once more, both armies withdraw to lick their wounds and count their losses. The Argives have gained intelligence and struck a psychological blow, but they remain as far from victory as ever. The defenders have lost valuable allies and face the bitter knowledge that their enemies can reach even into their heartland. Yet their walls remain intact and their spirits unbroken. In his tent among the Myrmidons, Achilles hears reports of the night's adventure, with the detached interest of a god observing mortal struggles. The capture of Rhesus's horses, the death of Troy's ally, the renewed hope in the Argive camp, all these touch him no more than wind touches mountain stone. His wrath against Agamemnon burns as bright as ever. His resolve to remain apart from the common cause remains unshaken. Yet even the son of Peleus cannot escape the tide of events entirely. As the siege stretches toward its second decade, and heroes fall like leaves in autumn, the pressure mounts for him to set aside personal grievance for the greater good. Envoys will come, gifts will be offered, pleas will be made. But the greatest warrior of his age has chosen his path, and pride may prove stronger than wisdom in determining how this tale will end. The stars wheel overhead in their eternal dance, while mortal men below struggle with questions of honor and duty, love and hatred, life and death. Tomorrow will bring fresh violence, new heroes to the fore, and perhaps the beginning of the end for one side or the other. But tonight, In the brief respite between one day's bloodshed and the next, even warriors must rest. Even heroes must close their eyes and dream of homes they may never see again. The wind carries the scent of funeral pyres across the darkening plain, mixing the ashes of friend and foe until none can tell one from the other in death's democracy. Somewhere beyond the flickering campfires, a nightingale sings of sorrows yet to come, its voice lost in the vast indifference of the star-scattered sky. The morning sun rises like a blood-red eye over the plain of Troy, illuminating a scene of carnage that grows more desperate with each passing day. The Argive position, once secure behind their ramparts and close to their ships, now trembles on the edge of complete disaster. Hector has driven the invaders back to their very vessels, his bronze spear painting arcs of death across the narrow space between sea and fortification. The great wall that the Argives built to protect their camp, those mighty stones dragged from the hills, those ramparts blessed by their priests, lies breached in 3 places. Through these gaps pour the defenders like a tide of bronze and fury, their war cries echoing off the black hulls of ships that carried dreams of glory, but may soon carry only ashes and defeat. Smoke rises from burning vessels as Trojan firebrands find their mark. The acrid smell of tar and burning wood fills the air, while Argive heroes who once boasted of their prowess now fight with the desperation of cornered wolves. The son of Atreus himself has taken wounds that would fell lesser men, while the son of Tydeus fights with his left arm bound, blood seeping through hastily wrapped bandages. Even Ajax the Great, tower of Argive strength, gives ground before the relentless advance. Yet through all this chaos and approaching doom, one figure remains apart from the struggle. In his shelter among the Myrmidons, the son of Peleus sits motionless as a statue carved from marble, his divine armor untouched by battle sweat, his terrible spear gathering dust while lesser men die for causes he no longer calls his own. The greatest warrior of the age watches his former comrades face destruction with the cold detachment of an immortal observing mortal folly. But if the hero's heart remains unmoved by the suffering of kings and champions, it cannot remain closed to the anguish of one who is closer than a brother. Patroclus, son of Menoetius, stands at the entrance to their shared dwelling, tears streaming down his face like a spring that runs dark water down a sheer rock face. His grief is not for the dying Argives alone, but for the terrible choice his beloved companion has made. To let honor destroy honor, to let pride consume the very cause that pride was meant to serve. Why do you weep, Patroclus, like a little girl who runs after her mother and begs to be picked up, clinging to her dress and holding her back as she tries to go, looking up at her with tears until she lifts her up? The son of Peleus speaks with bitter humor that cannot quite mask his own pain. Have you some news from Phthia that I have not heard? They say Menoetius still lives, and my own father, Peleus, still lives among the Myrmidons. If either of these had died, we would both grieve. Or do you weep for the Argives as they perish by the hollow ships through their own recklessness? The younger warrior's response comes from the depths of a heart torn between loyalty and justice, between love for one man and duty to thousands. Son of Peleus, greatest of warriors, do not be angry, but such grief has come upon the Argives. All those who were before the best of them lie among the ships, struck down and wounded. The son of Atreus is wounded, and Odysseus famous with the spear, and the son of Tydeus, all of them struck by arrows or spears from men who fought from a distance, the healers attending them with medicines. But you remain implacable. His voice grows stronger as passion overcomes fear, the words pouring out like water from a broken dam. Never may such anger take hold of me as you nurse accursed courage. What good will you be to future men if you do not ward off shameful destruction from the Argives? Pitiless one, your father was not the horseman Peleus, nor was Thetis your mother. The grey sea bore you, and the sheer cliffs, so hard is your heart. But if in your mind you are avoiding some prophecy, and your queenly mother has told you something from Zeus, at least send me quickly, and let the rest of the Myrmidons follow with me, that I might be a light to the Danaans. Give me your armour to wear about my shoulders. Perhaps the enemy will mistake me for you, and withdraw from battle, and the warlike sons of the Achaeans might catch their breath, worn out as they are. We who are fresh might easily drive men weary from fighting back to their city, away from the ships and shelters. The words hang in the air between them, like a sword balanced on its point. Here is the choice that will reshape destiny itself, not the grand decision of kings or the clash of armies, but the simple plea of one friend to another, offered in love and received in the terrible silence of a heart at war with itself. The son of Peleus feels something crack within his chest, a sound like ice breaking on a winter river. For 9 years of siege and countless days of nursing his wrath, he has held fast to his resolve. No gift could move him, no plea could touch him, no threat could shake him. But this cuts deeper than any bronze blade. This strikes at the core of what makes him more than mortal despite his divine blood. His beloved companion stands before him asking not for gold or glory, not for recognition or reward, but simply for the chance to die in his place. The offer is made with such innocent courage, such pure-hearted devotion, that even a hero's pride must bend before it like bronze before the smith's hammer. Yet the granting of this request comes wrapped in conditions that speak to the terrible precision of fate. "If you must go," the hero says at last, his voice thick with emotions he dare not name, "then hear my words and set them deep in your mind. Drive the enemy from the ships, that much I grant. But when you have cleared them away, come back. Do not be carried away by the joy of battle to fight without me against the horse-taming defenders, or you will diminish my honor. And do not lead the way toward Troy in the excitement of victory. One of the immortals who hold Olympus might intervene. Apollo the far-shooter loves them greatly. Turn back when you have brought safety to the ships, and let the others fight it out on the plain." The hero's hands tremble as he lifts his own armor, bronze breastplate hammered by divine craft, greaves that have never known defeat, the great shield that has turned aside the weapons of gods and men alike. Each piece carries memories of triumph, bears scratches from battles that poets still sing, holds power that transforms its wearer into something more than mortal. As he helps his friend don these sacred implements of war, he knows with the certainty of prophecy that he will never see them, or their wearer, return. The transformation of Patroclus unfolds like sunrise breaking over the sea. Where moments before stood a gentle youth more fitted for music than slaughter, now appears a figure terrible in war, divine armor gleaming like captured starlight. The great spear alone remains untouched. That ash shaft cut from Pelion's peak, tipped with bronze and balanced for the hand of the son of Peleus alone. No other mortal hero can wield that weapon, for it was crafted by the gods themselves as a wedding gift when Thetis took mortal Peleus as her husband. The Myrmidons gather around their borrowed champion like wolves scenting blood. These men have waited through long months of inaction, their battle fury bottled up like wine in a cracked jar. Now, seeing their lord's armor and believing their lord himself has returned to lead them, they howl their joy to the uncaring sky. 50 ships they crew, 50 contingents of the finest warriors Phthia ever bred, men who love the son of Peleus more than life itself, and will follow his seeming anywhere death might lead. The assault on the Trojan advance comes like lightning from a clear sky. One moment the defenders press forward with irresistible momentum, fire in their hands and victory songs on their lips. The next, the Myrmidons crash into their flank like a wave breaking against stone, bronze singing its song of slaughter, while their battle cry shakes the very foundations of Troy's ancient walls. At their head rides Patroclus in his borrowed glory, the divine armor making him appear as terrible as its true owner. Trojans who have learned to fear that gleaming bronze fall back in dismay, believing the son of Peleus has finally cast aside his wrath to rejoin the common cause. Heroes who have stood firm against Ajax the Great and held their ground before the son of Tydeus flee like children before the coming storm. The tide of battle turns with shocking swiftness. Ships that moments before blazed with enemy fire are saved by Myrmidon spears, while the great breach in the Argive wall becomes a gate through which death flows backward toward Troy. Patroclus drives his chariot through the press like a god walking among mortals, his borrowed spear drinking deeply of enemy blood, while his voice rings out with battle cries that sound almost like those of his beloved friend. Yet even in the sweet wine of victory, the seeds of disaster take root. The gentle youth who once played the lyre and tended wounds finds himself drunk on slaughter, intoxicated with the power that flows through divine bronze and blessed steel. Each fallen enemy feeds the fire in his blood. Each cry of fear from Trojan throats makes him feel more godlike, more invincible, more eager to press forward into greater glory. The warning words of the son of Peleus fade like morning mist before the blazing sun of triumph. What matter caution when the enemy flees? What use restraint when victory beckons just beyond the next charge? The young warrior sees himself in his mind's eye, driving through Troy's gates, standing triumphant on her citadel, claiming glory that will echo through the ages. In his borrowed armor, he feels capable of any deed, worthy of any honor. The advance continues past the ships, past the ramparts, out onto the plain where heroes have struggled for 9 long years. Behind him, the Myrmidons follow their seeming lord with absolute devotion, while ahead, the defenders fall back in growing disorder. For the first time since the war began, Troy's walls grow large in Argive eyes, and her people taste the bitter draught of genuine fear. But on Olympus, Apollo Farshooter watches with growing alarm as events spiral beyond what fate has decreed. This mortal boy in borrowed plumes drives too far, reaches too high, threatens to upset the careful balance the immortals have woven. The god's silver bow sings as he descends to earth like a falling star, his divine presence bending the very air around him. 3 times Patroclus assaults the walls of Troy itself, his borrowed courage carrying him where even the son of Peleus might hesitate to venture. 3 times Apollo himself beats him back, the god's immortal hands pressed against his shield, divine voice thundering warnings that echo across both earth and heaven. But the youth, drunk on victory and divine armor's power, makes a 4th attempt and seals his doom with his own ambition. The god's rebuke comes like judgment itself. Give way, Zeus-born Patroclus. It is not fated that proud Troy be sacked by your spear, nor even by that of the son of Peleus, who is far greater than you. The words carry the weight of cosmic law, the immutable will of powers beyond mortal understanding. Even heroes must bend before such authority. Even the gods themselves cannot alter what fate has decreed. But the damage is done, the pattern set in motion. Apollo strides among the defending ranks, his divine presence kindling fresh courage in hearts grown cold with fear. His words to the greatest of Troy's champions ring with promise and prophecy. Hector, and all you other leaders of the defenders and their allies, shame on you. Are you to flee before the Argives like bleating sheep? Now Patroclus has roused the Danaans who were downcast beside their ships. That is not the son of Peleus. His anger still holds him by the ships. But this one is doing great damage, so stand firm against him. The counterattack builds like a thunderstorm gathering on summer mountains. Where disorder ruled moments before, now purpose takes hold. Trojan heroes who scattered before the Myrmidon charge remember their duty to home and hearth, while their allies recall the oaths that brought them to this distant shore. The balance of battle shifts once more as divine will asserts itself against mortal ambition. In the center of the storm stands Hector, son of Priam, greatest of mortal warriors save one alone. His bronze spear thirsts for blood, while his voice rings out with commands that transform rout into resistance, fear into fury. He sees the borrowed armor gleaming in the press, and knows his moment has come, the chance to strike a blow that will echo through eternity, to claim a victory that will justify all the blood and tears of 9 years' siege. The duel, when it comes, unfolds with the terrible inevitability of tragedy. Patroclus, for all his gentle heart and borrowed courage, is not the son of Peleus. The divine armor can make him appear invincible, but it cannot grant him the skill of hands that have trained since childhood, the strength of limbs blessed by immortal blood, the terrible experience of one who has never known defeat. Yet the youth fights with the desperation of love itself, knowing that his friend's honor rests upon his shoulders, that thousands of lives hang in the balance of this single combat. His spear finds its mark more than once, and Trojan blood darkens the earth beneath his feet. For a moment, just a moment, it seems the impossible might occur, that love and loyalty might triumph over fate itself. But Zeus's golden scales tip with inexorable weight toward the side of doom. Hector's spear, guided by divine will and mortal skill, finds the gap between breastplate and helmet, that narrow space where death waits patient as a spider in its web. Bronze meets flesh, with a sound like tearing silk, and Patroclus feels his strength flow out like wine from a broken jar. As he falls, his borrowed armor scattering around him like petals from a dying flower, the youth's last words carry prophecy more terrible than any oracle's pronouncement. You boast now, Hector, but to you I say that death and powerful fate are near. By the hands of noble Peleus' son, you shall be slain. The words hang in the air like smoke from sacrifice, a curse and promise wrapped in the rattle of a dying breath. The armor of the son of Peleus, bronze blessed by gods, steel tempered in starfire, passes into enemy hands like a kingdom falling to siege. Hector strips the divine gear from the cooling corpse, while around them battle rages with fresh fury, both sides knowing that something fundamental has changed, that the rules governing this conflict have been rewritten in blood and prophecy. In his shelter by the ships, the greatest warrior of the age feels his heart break like a cup dropped on stone. No messenger has brought him word, no herald announces his loss, yet he knows with the certainty of divine blood that his other self walks no longer beneath the sun. The wail that breaks from his throat echoes across the wine-dark sea, a sound of grief so pure and terrible that even the immortals pause in their machinations to listen. Thetis hears her son's cry across the depths of ocean and knows that fate has turned its face toward the ending. Rising from her silver chambers beneath the waves, she comes like dawn breaking over mountains. her immortal beauty marked by sorrow that runs deeper than the sea itself. She finds her child rolling in the dust like a madman, his divine features twisted by grief beyond mortal understanding. "My son," she whispers, her voice like waves breaking on shingle. "Why do you weep? What sorrow has come to your heart?" But she knows the answer, even as the words leave her lips. For the threads of destiny are visible to her immortal sight, and she can see how they converge upon this moment, like rivers flowing toward the sea. The son of Peleus lifts his head, his eyes red with weeping, his voice cracked with anguish. "Mother, all that the Olympian promised me, he has brought to pass. But what pleasure do I have in this, since my dear companion has perished, Patroclus, whom I loved above all other companions as much as my own life? I have lost him, and Hector, who killed him, has stripped away the armor, that beautiful armor, a wonder to see, which the gods gave to Peleus as a glorious gift on the day they brought you to a mortal's bed. Would that you had stayed among the deathless sea nymphs, and that Peleus had taken a mortal wife. But now you must suffer countless griefs in your heart for your dead son, whom you will never again receive returning home, since my heart does not bid me live and remain among men, unless Hector first loses his life struck down by my spear, and pays the price for Patroclus's slaughter. The words seal his fate, as surely as bronze seals a tomb. Silver-footed Thetis weeps tears that fall like rain upon the wine-dark sea, for she knows what this choice means. Her son, her only child born of her union with mortality, chooses the short path that leads to immortal glory and early death. No power in heaven or earth can turn him from this course, now that love has been transformed into wrath, gentleness into fury, the protector into the destroyer. The sun sets like a bronze shield behind the western mountains, painting the plain of Troy in shades of blood and gold. Tomorrow will bring fresh armor forged by divine hands, weapons that will make their wielder terrible beyond mortal understanding. Tomorrow will bring the return of the son of Peleus to the field of battle, and with him such slaughter as the world has never seen. But tonight, in the brief space between one doom and the next, grief rules all. The Myrmidons keen for their fallen leader, while their lord tears his hair and cries his anguish to the uncaring stars. In Troy, Hector polishes captured armor, while his wife weaves shrouds she does not yet know she will need. And somewhere beyond the reach of mortal eyes, the fates smile their terrible smiles and continue weaving the pattern that will make this tale immortal. Dawn breaks over Troy like blood spilled across marble, the sky itself seeming to weep crimson tears for the violence about to unfold. In the divine forges beneath Mount Olympus, Hephaestus the smith has labored through the night, his mighty hammer ringing against anvils that have shaped the weapons of gods. The armor he creates surpasses all mortal craft, bronze that gleams like captured starlight, a shield that bears upon its surface the entire world in miniature, greaves that sing with power when they move. When silver-footed Thetis bears these gifts to her grieving son, she finds him still lying in the dust beside his friend's corpse, his divine features ravaged by a sorrow deeper than mortal understanding. The sight breaks her immortal heart anew, for she sees in him not the terrible warrior he will become, but the gentle child who once played on Phaea's shores while she sang him songs of heroes long dead. "My child," she whispers, her voice like waves lapping against stone. "Let the dead lie, though we grieve for him. He has been killed by the will of the immortals. But accept from me these glorious gifts from Hephaestus. No mortal man has ever worn such armor." She lays the divine panoply before him like a priest arranging sacred offerings, each piece blazing with its own inner fire. The transformation begins the moment bronze touches flesh. Where grief had made the hero weak as a child, divine craft now makes him terrible as a god. The breastplate molds itself to his form as if alive. The helmet's crest nods with supernatural menace, and from his eyes begins to shine a light that mortals can barely endure to look upon. This is no longer the sulking youth who withdrew from battle over wounded pride. This is wrath incarnate, vengeance given form, death walking upright in the shape of man. His war cry, when it comes, shakes the very foundations of Troy's ancient walls. 3 times he shouts his fury to the morning sky, and 3 times the defenders fall back in terror from the sound. It is not the voice of any mortal hero, but something far more terrible. The roar of earthquake, the howl of storm wind, the crash of waves destroying all they touch. The effect upon the battlefield is immediate and devastating. Trojan heroes who have stood firm against Ajax the Great and held their ground before the son of Tydeus flee like deer before hunting wolves at the mere sight of that blazing figure. Even Hector, bravest of Priam's sons, feels his heart grow cold as winter at the sound of that supernatural battle cry. But before the son of Peleus can loose his fury upon the world, reconciliation must come with those he had abandoned in his wrath. The son of Atreus, wounded and desperate, approaches with words of apology thick as honey. Son of Peleus, greatest of warriors, I was mad. I do not deny it. One man Zeus loves is worth many troops. He has honored you and struck down the Achaean host. But since I was blinded by destructive madness, I wish to make amends and offer boundless recompense. The gifts he offers would once have seemed beyond price. 7 unfired tripods, 10 talents of gold, 20 gleaming cauldrons, 12 race-winning horses, 7 women skilled in crafts, and Briseis herself returned untouched. Cities too, he promises, and marriage alliances that would make the son of Peleus the mightiest king in all Hellas. But to the grieving hero, these treasures seem no more valuable than pebbles on a beach. Son of Atreus, comes the reply, terrible in its calm simplicity. Give these gifts or keep them, as you will. But let us think of battle now. This is no time for talk and delay, while work remains undone. You will see the son of Peleus once more among the foremost fighters, cutting down the Trojan ranks with bronze. Let each of you remember this as he fights his man. The armies form their lines with the solemnity of priests preparing sacrifice, for all know that something fundamental has changed in the war's character. Where before heroes fought for glory and kings for honor, now divine wrath walks among them, seeking not victory but obliteration, not triumph but the total destruction of everything that stands in its path. When the son of Peleus finally strides onto the battlefield, the very earth seems to recoil beneath his feet. His armor blazes like a second sun, his divine spear thirsts for blood, and from his shield radiates power that makes strong men weak and brave men flee. Even his immortal horses, Xanthos and Peleus, gifts from the sea gods themselves, seem to sense the doom that rides with their master. As he mounts his chariot, one of these divine steeds, Xanthos the Golden, suddenly finds voice and speaks prophecy that chills the blood. We shall bear you swift as the wind today, mighty hero, but your day of death is near. We are not to blame, but a great God and powerful fate. Not through any slowness or slackness of ours did the defenders strip the armor from Patroclus' shoulders. It was the best of gods, fair-haired Leto's son, who killed him in the forefront and gave glory to Hector. We could run swift as the west wind, which men say is the fastest of all things. but it is your fate to be overpowered by a god and a mortal. The hero's response rings with acceptance of destiny and defiance of death itself. Xanthos, why do you prophesy my doom? You need not. I myself know well that it is my fate to die here, far from my dear father and mother. But still, I will not stop until I have driven the enemy to their fill of war. With these words, he drives his divine team forward into the press of battle, carrying death before him like a banner. The slaughter that follows exceeds anything the war has yet witnessed. Where the son of Peleus rides, the earth grows black with blood, and the river Scamander begins to choke on corpses. Trojans fall like wheat before the reaper's blade. Lycaon, who once was captured and ransomed but now finds no mercy. Asteropaeus, the ambidextrous spearman, who hurls 2 shafts at once yet cannot pierce divine armor. Dozens more whose names are remembered only in the poet's catalogue of the dead. But it is not enough for the hero's fury. Simple killing cannot satisfy wrath that burns with the heat of stars. He drives the fleeing enemy into the sacred river itself, turning its clear waters red with blood, filling its course with so many corpses that the current slows to a crawl. Here, in the sacred stream that has flowed pure since the world began, he commits acts that make the very gods recoil in horror. The river god Scamander can endure no more. Rising from his polluted waters in the form of a man, his voice booms across the battlefield like thunder. Son of Peleus, you surpass all mortals in might, and in evil deeds too, for the gods are always helping you. If Zeus has granted you to destroy all the defenders, at least drive them from my stream, and do your grim work on the plain. My lovely waters are filled with corpses, and I cannot pour my current into the divine sea, choked as I am with the dead, while you go on killing ruthlessly. Come now, cease, amazement holds me, prince of the people. But divine madness has seized the hero completely. His response to the river god's plea is to leap into the water itself, spear flashing like lightning as he continues his butchery in the very heart of the sacred stream. This sacrilege breaks the last restraints that bound the immortal powers to neutrality. Scamander calls upon his brother Simois, and together the 2 rivers surge against this mortal who dares defile their holy waters. The flood that rises threatens to drown even the son of Peleus. Waves tall as trees crash over his divine armor, while the current tears at his feet with fingers of liquid stone. For the first time since donning his new panoply, the hero knows fear, not of death, which he has already accepted, but of dying ignobly, drowned like a pig boy swept away by winter storms, rather than falling gloriously before Troy's walls. His prayer to Zeus echoes across both earth and heaven. Father, how has none of the gods taken pity on me to save me from this river? After this, I would face anything, but no other of the heavenly ones is so much to blame as my own mother, who beguiled me with lies, saying I would die beneath the walls of well-armed Troy, struck down by Apollo's swift arrows. Would that Hector had killed me, he who is the best warrior bred here. Then a brave man would have slain a brave man. But now it is my fate to be caught in a shameful death, trapped in this great river like a pig boy whom a torrent sweeps away as he tries to cross in a storm. The prayer reaches divine ears, and help comes from unexpected quarters. Hephaestus the smith, master of fire and forge, unleashes his flames across the battlefield. The sacred river boils like a cauldron. Fish die in the superheated water, and eels writhe in their death agonies as divine fire wars with immortal flood. Steam rises like the breath of titans, while Scamander cries out in pain, Hephaestus, no god can stand against you. I will not fight you when you blaze like this. Stop the strife. Let the son of Peleus drive the defenders from their city. What are their quarrels and succor to me? As the river yields and the waters recede, the war spreads to Olympus itself. The gods take sides with divine passion, immortals striking immortal in conflicts that shake the foundations of creation. Athena fells Ares with a great stone. Aphrodite leads her fallen lover from the field, only to be struck down by Athena's fist, while Poseidon and Apollo circle each other like wrestlers seeking advantage. But these celestial conflicts pale before the mortal drama unfolding on the plain below. The son of Peleus, saved from drowning, resumes his terrible harvest with renewed fury. Nothing can stand before his advance. Not the greatest champions, not the sacred sites, not the very laws that govern war itself. He has become a force of nature, as inexorable as earthquake and as destructive as wildfire. The slaughter drives the defenders back to Troy's very gates, where safety beckons just beyond bronze-bound doors. But at this crucial moment, Apollo intervenes with subtle treachery, taking the form of young Agenor to lead the hero on a chase that allows the main body of the Trojan army to reach safety. Only when the god reveals himself does the son of Peleus realize how he has been deceived. "Far shooter," he calls to the vanishing deity, his voice thick with frustrated fury. "Most destructive of all gods, you have cheated me by turning me away from the wall. Many more would have bitten the dust before reaching Troy, if you had not robbed me of great glory and easily saved them, having no fear of vengeance hereafter. Truly, I would take revenge on you if I had the power." The god's laughter echoes across the empty plain, as divine and mortal wrath clash like bronze on bronze. But the confrontation ends in stalemate. The son of Peleus cannot strike down an immortal, while Apollo dare not face directly the wrath that burns with such terrible intensity. The game of gods and heroes continues, with pawns promoted and sacrificed according to rules that mortals glimpse only in their dying moments. As the sun reaches its zenith and heat shimmers across the blood-soaked plain, one figure remains outside Troy's walls, while safety calls from within. Hector, son of Priam, greatest of mortal warriors save one alone, stands motionless as a statue before the Scaean gate. His bronze armor gleams in the harsh light. His great spear casts a shadow like a sundial's marker, and in his eyes burns the knowledge that his hour has come at last. Behind him, Troy's walls offer sanctuary and the promise of many more years of life. Before him, across the corpse-strewn plain, death approaches in the form of the son of Peleus. Divine armor blazing like a falling star, terrible spear thirsting for the blood that will balance the scales of vengeance. Between these two choices, safety and shame, or honor and death, the greatest defender must make the choice that will echo through eternity. The stage is set for the final act of this long tragedy. Two heroes will meet. Only one will walk away. And the fate of Troy will be decided not by the clash of armies, but by the outcome of single combat between champions whose names will outlive the stones of their cities. The wind carries the scent of blood and burning across the wine-dark plain, while somewhere in the distance a nightingale sings of sorrows yet to come. The greatest champion of Troy stands alone before the Scaean gate, like a bronze statue given life, his shadow falling long and dark across stones worn smooth by generations of heroes' feet. Behind him, the city's walls offer sanctuary and the sweet promise of continued existence. Before him, across the corpse-littered plain, approaches death incarnate, the son of Peleus in his divine armor, terrible as a god walking among mortals. For 9 years, Hector has been Troy's shield and spear, her greatest hope and surest defense. He has faced the mightiest champions of the Argive host and emerged victorious, stood firm when lesser men fled, carried the hopes of an entire people upon his bronze-clad shoulders. But now, watching that blazing figure draw near with murder in his heart, even the bravest of Priam's sons feels fear touch his warrior's soul like ice. From Troy's high tower, his aged father sees the approaching doom and tears his grey hair in anguish. "Hector!" the old king cries, his voice cracking with desperate love. "My dear son, do not wait for that man alone, without allies, lest you quickly meet your doom, overcome by the son of Peleus, since he is much stronger. Pitiless one, would that he were as dear to the gods as he is to me. Then quickly would dogs and vultures eat him as he lies, and bitter grief would leave my heart. He has bereaved me of many noble sons, killing them or selling them to far islands. Come within the wall, my child, to be the saviour of Troy's men and women. Do not give great glory to the son of Peleus and lose your own sweet life." His mother Hecuba adds her voice to the lament, bearing the breast that once nursed him. "Hector, my child, respect this breast and pity me. If ever I gave you the breast that soothes sorrow, remember it now, dear child. Ward off this dangerous man from within the wall. Do not stand as champion against him. Ruthless one, if he kills you, I shall never mourn you on your deathbed, dear branch that I bore, nor will your richly dowered wife. But far from us both, by the ships of the Argives, swift dogs will devour you." But their pleas fall upon ears, already deafened by honour's demands. The defender of Troy knows that flight now would mean eternal shame, that the greatest warrior cannot preserve his life at the cost of his city's hope. Better to face death gloriously than live with the knowledge that cowardice opened Troy's gates to her enemies. His mind is made. Here he will stand, here he will fight, here he will die if the fates decree it. Yet when that terrible figure draws near enough for mortal eyes to make out features, when divine armour blazes like the sun itself and immortal spear thirsts visibly for blood, even heroic resolve wavers. The son of Peleus approaches like wildfire, consuming everything in its path, like earthquake shattering the foundations of the world, like death itself given form and purpose. Before such supernatural fury, what mortal courage can stand firm? Fear, honest and undeniable, takes hold of Troy's greatest champion. 3 times he flees around the city's walls with the son of Peleus in pursuit, bronze-shod feet pounding against stone, while the watching gods weigh this final contest in their golden scales. Athena and Apollo hover close, ready to intervene, while Zeus himself holds the balance that will determine not just the fate of 2 heroes, but the destiny of Troy itself. On the 4th circuit, divine treachery decides the issue. Athena takes the form of Deiphobus, Hector's beloved brother, and calls out with honeyed words, "Dear brother, truly swift-footed vengeance presses you hard, chasing you around Priam's city. Come, let us stand fast and beat off his attack together." The deception is perfect, the false hope cruel beyond measure. For the goddess grants the defender courage to make his stand precisely so she can snatch it away at the crucial moment. The duel that follows will be remembered as long as men have voices to sing of heroes. Both warriors halt their pursuit, breathing hard from their circuit of the walls, divine and mortal bronze gleaming in the harsh sunlight. They are evenly matched in all but one crucial element, where Hector fights with mortal strength and skill. His opponent draws upon power that flows from Olympus itself. "Son of Peleus," the defender calls across the space between them, his voice steady despite the fear that gnaws at his heart. No longer will I flee from you as before I ran 3 times around the great city of Priam, without daring to await your attack. Now my heart urges me to stand and face you. I will either kill or be killed. But come, let us swear oaths before the gods, for they will be the best witnesses and guardians of agreements. I will not shamefully mistreat your body if Zeus grants me victory and I take your life. But when I have stripped off your glorious armor, I will give back your corpse to the Achaeans. Promise you will do the same. But mercy finds no place in the son of Peleus's heart. His reply comes like winter wind across a graveyard. Hector, do not speak to me of oaths, accursed one, as there are no faithful oaths between lions and men, nor do wolves and lambs have harmony of heart, but plan evil for each other continually. So there can be no love between you and me, nor shall there be oaths between us until one of us falls and gluts Ares with his blood. Remember all your skill. Now you must be a spearman and a bold warrior. There is no escape for you now. Athena will soon bring you low by my spear, and you will pay in full for all the sorrows of my companions whom you killed with your spear. The first cast comes from the son of Peleus, his divine spear flying straight as fate itself toward the defender's throat, but Hector sees it coming and ducks low, the bronze point passing over his head to bury itself in earth behind him. Athena retrieves it instantly, invisible to mortal eyes, and places it back in her champion's hands while Hector believes his enemy now stands weaponless. Now the defender hurls his own bronze-tipped ash, and his aim proves true. The spear strikes squarely in the center of his opponent's shield and rings like a temple bell. But divine craftsmanship turns aside mortal strength. The weapon rebounds harmlessly, leaving Hector staring in dismay at arms he thought would surely pierce any bronze ever forged. He turns to seek another spear from his brother Deiphobus, but the false form has vanished like morning mist. Now the terrible truth dawns. He has been deceived by the gods themselves, abandoned to face divine wrath with only mortal strength. In this moment of absolute despair, Troy's greatest champion finds his truest nobility. "Ah," he says aloud, his voice carrying across the plain with awful clarity. "The gods have summoned me to death. I thought the hero Deiphobus was near me, but he is within the wall, and Athena has deceived me. Now evil death is close, not far away, and there is no escape. This must long have been pleasing to Zeus and his far-shooting son, who before this gladly defended me. But now my fate has caught me. Let me not die without effort and inglorious, but in doing some great deed for men hereafter to learn of." Drawing his great sword, he charges with the desperation of a cornered lion, bronze singing as it leaves the scabbard. But the son of Peleus meets him with recovered spear, divine point seeking the one gap in armor he knows exists, that small space beneath the chin where helmet and corselet do not quite meet, where Hector's own armor offers him protection but not salvation. The bronze enters cleanly, sliding between the bones of the neck but missing the windpipe so that speech remains possible. Troy's champion falls backward into the dust, divine armor clattering around him like discarded dreams, while his slayer stands over him with terrible satisfaction burning in his eyes. Hector, the son of Peleus, speaks, his voice thick with long-nursed hatred. "You thought, as you stripped Patroclus, that you would be safe, and you gave no thought to me who was absent. Fool, there was one left behind by the hollow ships, far greater than he who would be your avenger. I, who have loosened your knees. Dogs and birds will tear you shamefully, but the Achaeans will give him funeral rites. Even in death's grip, the defender's nobility shines forth. His final plea carries the weight of all human dignity. I beseech you by your life and knees and parents, do not let dogs devour me by the ships of the Achaeans, but accept bronze and gold, the gifts my father and queenly mother will give you, and give my body back to be taken home, so that the Trojans and their wives may give me my due of fire in death. But vengeance has made the son of Peleus more beast than man. His response strips away all pretense of heroic honor. Dog, do not beseech me by my knees or parents. I wish my heart and spirit would drive me to cut up your flesh and eat it raw for what you have done. There is no one who can keep the dogs from your head, not even if they should bring 10 or 20 times your ransom and weigh it out, and promise more besides. Not even if Priam should offer your weight in gold, would your queenly mother lay you on a bed and mourn the son she bore. Dogs and birds will devour you utterly. Hector's dying words carry prophecy that will echo through eternity. I know you well and foresaw this. I could not persuade you, for the heart in your breast is iron. But take care lest I become a cause of the gods' wrath against you on the day when Paris and Apollo destroy you at the Scaean gate, valiant though you are. Death takes him then, his spirit flying from his limbs like a bird taking wing, leaving only cooling bronze and flesh that was once Troy's greatest hope. The desecration that follows shocks even the war-hardened Argives. The son of Peleus pierces his enemy's ankles behind the tendons and threads leather thongs through the wounds, binding the corpse to his chariot. Then, mounting his divine car, he drives wildly around the walls of Troy, dragging his prize through dust and stones while the defenders' people watch in horror from their towers. 3 times he circles the city with his grisly trophy, bronze armor scraping against stone, while blood marks their passage like a painter's brush across canvas. The sight breaks Priam's heart completely. The old king tears his hair and rolls in dung, calling out his son's name while his people weep for their lost protector. Within the palace, Andromache weaves at her loom, her hands moving in the eternal rhythm of women's work, while she dreams of her husband's safe return. She calls for servants to heat a bath for Hector when he comes home from battle, not knowing that he will never again need warmth from mortal fire. Only when the wailing reaches her ears does terrible understanding dawn. Racing to the wall like a madwoman, she sees the horses dragging what was once her beloved across the pitiless stones. Her scream echoes across Troy as consciousness flees her like a bird taking wing. Hector! Unhappy am I. We were both born to one fate. You in Troy, in the house of Priam, and I in Thebe under wooded Placus, in the house of Eetion, who raised me when I was small, ill-fated father of ill-fated daughter. Would that he had never begotten me. Now you are going to the house of Hades beneath the secret places of the earth, leaving me in hateful widowhood in the palace, and your son is still just a baby, son of you and me, both doomed. The funeral games for Patroclus unfold over 12 days, magnificent in their scope and solemn in their purpose. Champions compete in chariot racing, boxing, wrestling, foot racing, spear throwing, and archery, while the son of Peleus gives out prizes that would ransom kingdoms. Yet through all these celebrations of his friend's memory, his own grief remains unassuaged, his fury unquenched. Each dawn finds him dragging Hector's corpse around Patroclus's burial mound, seeking in this repetitive cruelty some release from the pain that gnaws at his heart like a living thing. But divine intervention preserves the body from corruption. Apollo protects his faithful servant even in death, keeping the flesh whole despite its daily torment. On Olympus, the gods grow sickened by this spectacle. Zeus himself finally intervenes, sending Iris to summon aged Priam for a mission that will test the very limits of human courage. The rainbow goddess finds the old king in his palace, broken by grief but still clinging to the dignity of his royal station. Divine Priam, she speaks with honeyed words that carry divine command. Zeus bids you go to the ships of the Achaeans to ransom your son, carrying gifts that will soften the heart of the son of Peleus. Go alone, let no other Trojan come with you, but only a herald, an old man, to drive the mules and smooth-wheeled wagon, and bring back to the city the dead man whom divine vengeance has slain. Let not death be in your thoughts or any fear. Such a guide will escort you, the guide of souls, who will lead you until you come to the son of Peleus. The journey through enemy lines requires courage beyond mortal measure. In darkness deeper than a moonless night, the old king drives his treasure-laden wagon past Argive sentries who sleep under divine enchantment. Hermes himself serves as guide, the god of boundaries and transitions, leading this ultimate crossing between worlds of the living and the dead. They find the son of Peleus in his shelter, alone with his grief and his terrible satisfaction. The sight that greets Priam's eyes would break a lesser man's spirit entirely. His son's corpse lies carelessly beside the wall like discarded rubbish, while the slayer sits brooding over his own unhealed wounds. What follows next will be remembered as long as men have hearts to feel compassion. The old king enters like a suppliant, falls at his enemy's feet, and kisses the terrible hands that killed his son. Remember your own father, godlike one who is of like age with me, on the grievous threshold of old age. Perhaps those who dwell around him are troubling him, and there is no one to ward off ruin and destruction. Yet he, when he hears that you still live, rejoices in his heart and hopes every day that he will see his dear son returning from Troy. But I am utterly unfortunate, since I fathered the best sons in wide Troy, and I say that none of them is left. The appeal strikes something deep within the hero's heart, not the warrior's pride or the avenger's fury, but the simple human recognition of shared mortality, common grief, the bonds that unite all fathers in their love for their children. For the first time since Patroclus fell, tears flow from those terrible eyes, and the son of Peleus weeps not for his friend alone, but for the universal sorrow that touches all who love. "Unhappy old man," he says at last, his voice gentle as rain after drought, "you have indeed endured much grief in your heart. How did you dare to come alone to the ships of the Achaeans, to the sight of the man who has killed many of your noble sons? Your heart is iron. But come now, sit on this chair, and we shall let our sorrows lie quiet in our hearts for all our grief. There is no profit in chill lamentation. This is the lot the gods have spun for wretched mortals, to live in misery while they themselves are free from care. The ransom is accepted, the body prepared with gentle hands, and for one brief moment, the terrible machinery of war stops its grinding to allow human decency its due. Father and son slayer share food and wine, while speaking of mortality and loss, finding in their common humanity a bridge across the chasm that separates Greek from Trojan, victor from vanquished, young from old. When Priam departs in the darkness before dawn, he carries with him more than his son's corpse. He bears the knowledge that even in war's darkest hours, mercy may still flower like roses among thorns. The son of Peleus grants him 12 days of truce for Hector's funeral, a gift more precious than gold or bronze. The funeral of Troy's greatest champion unfolds with all the majesty due a fallen hero. For 9 days they gather wood, building a pyre tall as a tower, while the women keen their lamentations and poets compose verses that will outlive the stones of the city itself. On the 10th day, they burn the body with proper rites, Hector's spirit finally free to make its journey to the shadowy realm of Hades. As the flames consume the mortal remains of Troy's defender, both armies watch from their respective camps. The smoke rises straight into the windless sky like a prayer, carrying with it the hopes and fears of an entire people. When the fire dies to embers and the bones are gathered in a golden urn, Troy builds a burial mound that will mark this place for generations yet unborn. The war is not ended. That doom still awaits in the future, when wooden horses and burning towers will write the final chapter of this tale. But something has shifted in the cosmic balance. Some fundamental truth about honor and humanity has been revealed in the space between vengeance and mercy, between the demands of glory and the claims of simple human decency. The funeral fires of Hector burn low as evening settles over the wine-dark plain, their smoke rising straight into a sky that seems painted with the ashes of heroes. Troy's walls stand unbroken against the western light, but the city behind them has been forever changed by the loss of its greatest defender. In the Argive camp, the son of Peleus sits beside his ships, his terrible wrath finally cooled, but not his knowledge of what awaits. The war will continue, though the poet's voice falls silent here. Other bards will sing of what comes after, of Amazon queens and Ethiopian princes, of wooden horses and burning towers, of the final night when Troy's ancient stones will drink the blood of Priam's people. But those are tales for other voices, other times when men gather around fires to hear of how the mighty fall, and how even gods must bow before the turning of fate's great wheel. From this vantage point, at the end of Wrath's long journey, we can see how the threads of destiny weave together into patterns larger than any mortal mind can fully grasp. The son of Peleus has won his vengeance, but the price exacted reaches far beyond one man's grief or one hero's fall. In choosing the short path to immortal glory, he has set in motion consequences that will echo through generations yet unborn. Already the shadow of his own doom stretches across the days to come. Paris and Apollo wait beyond tomorrow's horizon. The archer god's silver bow already drawn, the arrow nocked that will find the one vulnerable spot where mortality touches even the greatest of heroes. The prophecy, spoken by Hector in his dying breath, hangs in the air like smoke from sacrifice, inescapable as winter, certain as the turning of the stars. Yet in the space between vengeance achieved and doom approaching, something deeper has been revealed about the nature of heroism itself. When Priam knelt before his son's slayer and kissed the hands that dealt death, when the son of Peleus wept for both his friend and his enemy's father, when mercy flowered in the heart of pitiless wrath, in that moment, the true measure of what makes men great was taken and found to rest not in strength of arm or skill with bronze, but in the harder courage of compassion. The walls of Troy will fall, as walls must when gods decree their breaking. The heroes whose names echo through our tale will pass into shadow, their bronze bright armor rusting in the earth, their voices joining the vast silence that swallows all mortal glory. But the truths their struggles have revealed, about honor and pride, love and loss, the bonds that unite us and the passions that tear us apart, these will endure as long as mortals draw breath beneath the wheeling stars. In years to come, when poets gather in marble halls to sing of ancient days, they will tell how wrath began this tale and mercy ended it. They will speak of heroes who blazed like stars across the darkness, burning bright and brief before fading into legend. They will weave words around the eternal questions that drove these champions to glory and to doom. What price is honor worth? How much love can a heart contain before it breaks? When gods and mortals clash, who truly wins? The answers, like the heroes themselves, slip away even as we reach for them. Perhaps this is as it should be. Perhaps the questions matter more than their solutions, the seeking more than the finding. In every age, new heroes will arise to test themselves against these same eternal challenges, to discover in their own hearts what courage means, what duty demands, what love can accomplish even in the face of certain death. The campfires flicker and fade along the shore of the wine-dark sea, but somewhere in the darkness, a poet's voice begins again, the ancient song, "Sing, goddess of wrath." And in that beginning, all endings are contained, all stories find their start, all heroes begin their journey toward whatever immortality awaits those who dare to live as though their choices matter, as though honor is worth any price, as though love can triumph even over death itself. The wind carries salt spray across the darkening plain, mixing the tears of the sea with the dust of kings and commoners alike. Above, the stars wheel in their eternal dance, marking time for gods and mortals both, while below, the great story continues, ever old, ever new, ever singing of the glory and the grief that make us human. Here ends the tale of wrath and its consequences, of heroes and their choices, of the long shadow that Troy's story casts across all the days that follow. Let those who hear remember, and in remembering, honor both the fallen and the yet to fall. For in the end, we are all players in the same eternal drama, all heroes of our own small chapters in the vast book that has no final page. The darkness deepens, the fires fade to embers, and silence settles over the plain where gods and mortals played out their eternal game. But the song continues, will always continue, as long as human hearts beat with the rhythm of courage and compassion, wrath and mercy, love and loss, the endless music that makes heroes of us all.